Welcome back to the Convo Couch, everyone. Pasta Jardula here.
And Fiorella.
And Jonny Sue, spinning on those ones and twos, fam. So, we have a little interesting Sunday night. Thank you for joining us. Kind of a little party going on over here, fam.
Good Sunday night.
Yeah.
Sunday night.
Good morning. Good night. Good Sunday night. We're here. We had a great Saturday show. Thank you for all of you who joined in. And thank you for coming back with us here today on the weekend. Crazy weekend. A lot of stuff going on. Fam, tonight, we have something special going on. You want to tell everybody?
Well, tonight we have Sheriff Vilanueva is going to be answering questions from the community because Feel the Burn Democratic Club initially endorsed him. In fact, the vast majority of progressives initially endorsed him in Los Angeles, correct? He is the LA County Sheriff.
Yep.
And he, you know, like I said, he got a lot of the support from the Latino community. He got a lot of the support from the progressive community. And so Feel the Burn Democratic Club is holding a meeting to potentially unendorse him because of his latest actions regarding police brutality, regarding the attacks on journalists, on the attacks on protesters, etc. So that's what's going on. We're also going to be talking with Raji Rab. He's going to be explaining what's going on with his case, and Jonny is also going to be participating in that as well.
Yeah, a lot of things going on. He got my support. He was the only person I voted for in 2018. I actually had the pleasure of knocking on doors with him, and it was just me, him, and his wife was falling behind in the car. He's got a little bit of a limp, so he was pushing it that day. And every time somebody opened up a door with a new issue, you know, and he went into the Altadena community and he was talking to these people, and it was just... it was impressive for me, and I thought it was a good choice moving forward. He has done some good stuff. There was, I think, a 60-minute special which showed he would not cooperate with ICE, and he actually threw them out of the prison system so they couldn't sit there and pick people up as they were being processed out of the prison. Another big reason why Barack Obama deported more people in his first 4 years than Donald Trump, because there were people like Vilanueva in areas where there are a lot of immigrants that could be deported and not cooperating with them. So there are some positive things. But, fam, with the protest, there's been a lot of negatives. Whether you agree with the protesters or not, it's their First Amendment right. This is about our civil liberties. They have the right to protest. And there's a lot of questions on some of the tactics he's been using. Unlawful search and seizure, claiming that there were people coming in from out of town, outside agitators, when he's been arresting and holding on to a lot of young journalists, I like to call them, that he knows who they are. So that tactic alone, I think we're going to have some people jump in there and ask about that. Also, when one person throws a water bottle at about 20 sheriffs in riot gear, they light the whole group up like it's a Christmas tree. We know they're not monoliths. People are there for different reasons. So I want to know what his protocol is for handling these situations. Also, a lot of new LS Sheriff Department people. There have been claims from some people that they've been hiring outside third-party sources like Blackwater groups to beef up their force for these protests. I want to know about that. How about the attack on journalists, fam? I know you're curious about that too as well. The attack on the journalists and what happened to that one NPR journalist, I forgot her name.
Josie Huang.
Yes, was disgusting. And I want to know what he deems a journalist and what's not a journalist, because
even so, what he deems a journalist is irrelevant because people have the right to film. People have the right to be there, whether they have credentials or not. And Josie Huang did have credentials, and his department proceeded to push out several tweets lying about her and about her actions, and the fact that they didn't know she had credentials, and the fact that she supposedly approached them when she was told not to. And we saw in the video that wasn't the case. Her phone was smashed. She was attacked by like 6 officers without necessity. Also, the money being spent with all the riot gear, that's unnecessary. All of the
lack of body cams.
The lack of body cams that were supposed to be here, I think, by the end of this month. Like being so hostile towards these protesters. Like if they weren't as hostile, I think that the situations wouldn't escalate as much at all. And we're going to be discussing the violations on some of this. Some of these people's right to have been arrested or detained unlawfully without having any sort of warrant or any reasoning for being detained, getting their picture taken, which is completely like not legal, getting their picture taken on the side of the road, and then getting, you know, their records looked up, etc. And we have also heard Jonny and I went to a protest where we saw these people discover their car tires slashed and said that they saw an officer doing it. I mean, this is like...
We've seen officers taking out water, right?
Oh, yeah. They take the water from them. I mean, this is like... The situation here is really tense right now between the protesters and the LA sheriff. And so we want to get some answers from Sheriff Vilanueva, and we also want to hear how the community feels, especially a community that gave him so much support.
Yeah, and there's officers that he hired when he initially got the job, when we put him in office. Remember, we met him at the AOC fundraiser. He sat down with us and stuff. That was back in the days.
How much has changed?
How much has changed? But I like the fact that he was going to the progressives.
Yeah.
He was asking for their vote. He would stand face to face with a lot of Trump supporters that went in there that didn't want him to get elected. In a lot of meetings and stuff, they would show up because they wanted McDonald to stay there. But we do have to question the fact that he hired some mischievous officers back. I know that we heard he has a claim that he's hired the whistleblowers back that were ostracized, but I'm interested about that. And then Johnny's also done some reporting with Tina-Desiree Berg about this whole gang thing going on.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask him, were you ever part of, or are you still part of, a gang? You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of questions he needs to answer right now, and it's very interesting. And once again, the good thing about Vilanueva, he's going to always face the fire. He's coming on here today. Yeah. Unless if he doesn't show up today, then we know what's going on. But Vilanueva has been known to be one of those guys that come and face the fire and will give you his answers and his reasons why. So this is very interesting, and I'm very glad that Melissa Michelson from the Field of Burn Democratic Club was able to set this up. This is interesting.
Yeah. Johnny, did you want to say anything?
Other than Villanueva, Glory's gonna be there. She's gonna go there. So we'll cut to their audio at around 7 p.m. But other than Villanueva, there's also after that Raji Rab is gonna explain his case to the club. So it'll be good for us to live stream, just to those who haven't heard of it can hear it in a new perspective now. Now that he's gone through. It's been almost 7 months in court since March. And it's insane what's going on with his case, because he has scientific evidence now and two experts who gave their opinion, and they're not going to throw away 25 years of their experience to give this opinion.
Yep.
It's a big deal when someone who's an expert in the field comes in, says, "I will be in court in you and make a testimony and make these testimonies for you."
We've been saying this, Johnny. We have systemic issues within our election system across the board that need to be fixed, just like there's systemic racism in our criminal justice system. We have so many problems across the board. These are two areas which I really would like to really take care of and really get in there and get some really systemic change over here. I mean, there are so many reforms we can add on to the police department that would really straighten things out. When Johnny went out for the Black Lives Matter, Dance for Black Lives Matter, where they had the 10 ways to reform the police department, I thought it was amazing, and we need to get some of that stuff implemented. Because right now, the oversight situation when it comes to the police department, investigating themselves, it's disgusting. We have a mental health problem. We've had mentally ill people on the street since Ronald Reagan did this years and years and years ago. And it's a lot of homeless people out in the street who are mentally ill that we don't take care of. It shouldn't be up to a police officer. It should be a doctor that should handle that. You know what I'm saying? So we have to find a way to, intertwine that into our police department. There are so many avenues we need to fix, and it starts with today. Because the question is really right now, fam, is like, we've always said, well, is he better than McDonald? McDonald was pretty bad. McDonald is awful. Is he better than McDonald? So it's like, if we are going to take away this job from him, who are you going to give it to?
Well, we're not taking away his job. This is just an endorsement.
I'm saying down the road, though, but that the unendorsement leads to you're going to get your ass voted out next time, you know what I'm saying? But it's who we choose moving forward, I think, is also going to be the question. Like, who can we get there? Because a lot of people were really anxious and they were excited about Villanueva getting in there. It was the first time a Democrat had really held this position in 90 years or something like that. It was something ridiculous. So
in a long time. But the fact of the matter is his actions against the protesters and against journalists, he's a leader. He's supposed to be the leader. And so this falls on him. Have been absolutely awful, and at the very least need to be questioned, and he needs to be held accountable, especially as this continues. And, it's actually, I do applaud him for showing up at least. Hopefully he shows up, but I still think that it's important, especially when people, we're talking about big things. We're talking about the Green New Deal. We're talking about, Medicare for all. We're talking about holding people accountable, free Assange and all this This starts in your community. It starts with holding these people accountable, holding these electeds accountable, making sure that they know that they're a public servant, that they are not a celebrity, that they are not here to be completely idolized and adored and fawned over, that they're here to do a job, and as long as they do their job and they represent the people, that's fine. But the minute they don't represent the people, then you have to talk to them, and it starts in your communities. You know, we always talk about big national issues, but here in Los Angeles and California, we have some of the most powerful people in charge, and they're all Democrats. They're all supposed to be these beacons of progressive, and they're not. Yeah. They're not at all. And so this is why you're seeing all the protests too against people like Jackie Lacey, who was a black woman, who was a Democrat, who people had just got done. We just got done showing what the work Jonny did yesterday. Literally, like, all these people cursing at her who vehemently hate her because as the prosecutor, or I'm sorry, as the DA, she hasn't prosecuted actual cops at all, and more cops have killed people under her watch, and she hasn't done anything. So it doesn't matter that she's a Democrat, that she's a woman of color, if she's not doing her job. And so this is what progressives and everybody who really focuses on the identity politics and well, at least you have a Democrat and you live in California, need to understand, like, it doesn't matter. People are corrupt in whichever party. They're corrupt, period. Yeah. And we have to hold them accountable. And if we can do that, if we can show that in our community, it does so much, because this will take a precedent. Maybe somebody else in another state, whether it's Colorado, whether it's any other state, Florida, whatever, New York, can do the same thing as well. Yeah.
It's one big aisle. You know, you see those videos of the cops kind of going out there and talking to the protesters and saying, "I'm proud of you," and "I'm going to march with you," and stuff like that. I always pictured Vilanueva to be that type of guy. So his standoffishness towards these protests was really surprising, and seeing the way they handle things. You know, I thought he would really get a grasp on the way the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department operated, but really, to tell you the truth, during these hard times, and don't get me wrong, this is something that McDonald never had to deal with. That a sheriff hasn't had to deal with this type of protest in a long time, where it's day after day after day after day after day. You know, I haven't seen many politicians go out there and talk to people and address their anger. That's why it's so just frustrating seeing this going on, because these people in the streets, you know, whether they're right or wrong or you disagree with them, they have a reason to be upset. And as a leader, you should go out and address them. And, you know what I'm saying? And Villanueva and his sheriff's department, they know who these kids are who are protesting. You know, they know who they are, and they're still, you know, acting up against them when they have the right to go out there, film this, and they are the young journalists out there right now, and it's a shame that it's happened to them in this way. So this is going to be very interesting to see what Miss Sheriff Villanueva does say today. So
yeah, Mr.
Real quick, I got this little video here. It says Oversight panel calls for LA County Sheriff Villanueva to immediately resign. So let's just watch this.
Yeah.
Leadership of the department. The unanimous vote came after several hours of discussion on topics that range from the budget to deputy gangs, the sheriff's refusal to accept civilian oversight, and what the commission calls a cover-up in the case of the photographs taken by deputies at the scene of the Kobe Bryant helicopter crash.
His willingness to defend indefensible actions by sheriff's deputies, abusing protesters, arresting journalists, having spokespeople who utter racist and despicable comments about Black communities and communities in Compton. The sheriff himself has used sexist and racist language to describe Supervisor Hilda Solis and has not apologized to date. He fails to take responsibility for the problems in the department, blaming everyone else.
In a statement, the Sheriff's Department referred to the call for Villanueva's resignation as, quote, meritless, politically motivated attack.
You know, we talk about the oversight, right? The oversight committee, he's refusing a outside entity coming in and take a look at their work. That's something that's really just, it's cause for concern. If you're going to stand behind what your sheriffs are doing, then you let oversight come in there right now and see what's going on. And he's and don't get me wrong, fam, the establishment went after this guy pretty hard. A lot of these people in here that I think are just lousy politicians that capitulate everything Rendon and the freaking Democrats do in this state went after him. You know what I'm saying? But they need to be held with some accountability too as well for what's going on in their communities across the board. But this is it's interesting over here. And Johnny just pointed out when they talked about this, the gangs within the gang, right? I want to know about that. I want to know if he was ever part of a gang. Because if he says no, and then a picture surfaces.
I think that was like knowledge that he was, but he wasn't anymore. But I also want to point out.
I didn't even know that. See?
I also want to point out the fact that they're bringing this up because of the Kobe Bryant situation.
Oh yeah.
But I mean, what about these protesters? What about these journalists? Like, I love how that was.
It takes a celebrity.
It takes a celebrity for them to like go after the sheriff. And Hilda Solis is no innocent woman. I mean, she's pretty awful. She's literally one of these establishment Democrats that has supported Anthony Rendon, who shelved single payer here in California. Yeah. So it's not like this is like completely independent of all of that. This is supposed to be a guy that is nonpartisan. That's supposed to be like, looking over the whole department and how enacting justice, protecting and serving. I mean, he's the freaking sheriff of LA. Like, that's a big job. Those are big shoes to fill. And so when you don't have control, either he doesn't have control over people or he is working with them. And this was all a ploy to really pretend that, we were going to be progressive and do all this stuff. And then at the end of the day, just let these people run rampant, especially right now at a time where we obviously have massive tension between the police and all these communities. Especially, it's going to get worse because as the economy gets worse, people's anger and people's anxiety and all of this it's going to come out. People are going to start protesting far more for rent. They're going to start protesting, the situation. Politicians, we're seeing more of that now. And so it's not gotten any better. We are still seeing people get shot. We are still seeing people completely not be held accountable for these people that are dying. And so what's it going to take? We don't want to be adversarial. The community doesn't want to be in an adversarial relationship, but that's where it's at right now with the police.
Yeah. I watching Johnny's video today, there was one young lady who was telling a story about what was going on, that when a woman witnessed her son being murdered in the street by police officers, she screamed, and then they deported her. So she couldn't be a witness to what was going on, and they deported her quickly that night. That's the kind of shit that you hear that just really kind of inflames you and says, this is when we need oversight from the outside. We can't let the police investigate the police anymore. So, I mean, and also the Jackie Lacey situation. We have Gascon, Gascon's got his own baggage from San Francisco. Rachel Rossi, once again, she was a public defender, now running for district attorney. That's what we need. We need somebody who's seen both sides over there, whatnot, because it's your tax dollars that's being spent in the prison system and the prison industrial complex for corporations to make money. And we protested against a lot of these detention centers and people. What was the one we talked about in Westchester? You remembered it the other day. I forgot the name.
Not Blackstone. It was Geo Group.
Geo Group. And, we were there. We were outside there, and these people make millions of dollars, you know what I'm saying, off this right here and stuff. And once again, it's lifted up by both Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, and you're right. And they often employ Latinos too to do that job because it gets the they're like, oh, see, go talk to the Latino person, you do it. Like it's really disgusting how they tokenize the identities too to do this job. Like, and these people are just working because they need a job, and so that's the thing. It's the same thing with the police. I get that they need a job, but like, how far does that go? Like, once you start seeing corruption, once you start seeing abuse and violence and even death, like, how far are you willing to say, well, that's my job? Because that's how you create, these what do we call them, stormtroopers.
Super chat contribution from Eats Bosebud. Thank you so much for the Finsky. We appreciate all that help, and we would appreciate all you guys who are now on our Patreon. We're 124 and climbing. If you haven't gone over to the Rokfin, ROKFIN, jump over to that site right now. And if you can endorse us for $9.99 a month, please do so. If not, just join the love and just be a member over there, and you can watch us right now. We only have 8 people watching over there. We have about 73 on the YouTubes, but 33 likes. Like that, give us that thumbs up. Share this out there right now. We're getting shadow banned, fam. They're not putting us in the algorithm. So we have to go out there and we have to hustle ourselves because they're trying to keep us down. We are just a very short time away from getting started with this group. Johnny's keeping an eye on it. We're going to go from there. I want to say hi to Slow Day News and Lawrence Chu and the Independent Left News. Yep. Slow News Day.
Okay, he's in. He's in.
He's in. So we're going to go right here.
We endorsed you after you spoke to our club. Where'd you go? Where'd you go? There you are. And so we're welcoming you back. Thank you for being here. And we wanted to have a discussion with you and hear from you because on the table is a possible unendorsement. And as you know, you signed the unendorsement agreement, or you put your name down on that. So welcome, and we hope that you can stay with us for at least 45 minutes. And we have questions that I will be moderating. They're kind of a group question. Now, let me set this up because I had wanted to live stream into our Facebook page because we live stream everything, all our guest speakers into there. So just give me a second while I
all right.
Put you on mute for a second as well. So let me get this started. And thanks, Paul, for reminding me. All right, let's see. Am I live streaming it? Live on Facebook.
Oh, we're muted?
Maybe, Paul, you could take a look.
They're muted.
Let's see.
They don't hear us. Right. Okay.
Where's Paul? Well, there's Paul. Where's Todd?
I might have to go through introductions again because
there.
we can start with the live stream. And we have people coming in as well who wanted to be here at 7.
Where's Jacinta?
Oh, wow, there's 3 pages.
Come on, Melissa.
All right. Adding a title. Bad with titles. All right. So as I mentioned, we do have the Convo Couch here. They're streaming, and we're also streaming on Feel the Burn Democratic Club Facebook page. And thank you, members and members of the public, for being here, as well as Alex Vilanueva, Sheriff of LA County. I have everybody on mute at the moment. If you would like to be unmuted, you can raise your blue Zoom hand. Hopefully you know how to do that. Members have been putting together a list of questions that we would like the sheriff to answer, but I will be moderating that. We also have a special guest that perhaps has her own perspective from on the ground that I will ask to also address Mr. Vilanueva. So is there anything, let me unmute you. There you go. No. There we go. Okay. Mr. Vilanueva, is there anything that you would like to say, first of all, as we're here considering a possible unendorsement?
Well, actually, there's a lot I'd like to say, but let me be as brief as possible, because I know there's a lot of questions that you folks want to ask, and I'm more than happy to answer. But let me start with, I went through the statement that I signed when I first got your endorsement, the unendorsement, and I went through your values of the Feel the Burn Democratic Club. And I will say this, I'm going to just as an exercise so people can understand where I'm coming from. I want you to take everything that's been said by the Board of Supervisors, the LA Times, the Oversight Commission, the Inspector General, take all that, set it aside. Just set it aside for now, all right? Because that is like a ping pong ball bouncing around and it's really the same message. So let's set that aside. Now I'm going to speak of what I've done that is consistent with the values of the Feel the Burn Club. And this is what I campaigned on, and this is what I've delivered today. First week in office, I kicked ICE out of the county jails, but I didn't stop there. In April of this year, I enacted a permanent moratorium on transferring all inmates to the custody of ICE. That came at great expense, including death threats. I think Mr. Cuccinelli from the White House sent me a really nasty gram about how horrible I was as a human being for doing this, but it was the right thing to do for the right reasons. And that is consistent with the Feel the Burn Democratic Club's values. I didn't stop there. February of last year, I banned taking money from the federal government that was being used. We were selling the undocumented inmates to the federal government in exchange for money. $122 million we received from 2005 to 2018 in exchange for the undocumented database, with which the Trump administration and previously the Obama administration would use to basically hunt down our undocumented people as they were released from custody or released from custody. That is horrible. We ended that. That was very important. First week in office, we launched the body-worn camera program. And we now have 5 stations have the body-worn cameras. November 1st, Compton Station will start being issued their body-worn cameras. We're doing the training, and it's paying off already, dividends. Very important, and this is a cornerstone of my commitment to transparency. Again, something else I campaigned on. Very, very important. My first act in office, that very first Monday, December 3rd of 2018, I relieved of duty the commander of East LA Station because of his ineffective leadership and not addressing the whole issue about deputy clicks. And we transferred 36 personnel. We launched both criminal and administrative investigations that resulted in the suspension or termination of 26 employees. This is something all my predecessors failed to do. They just kicked the can down the road and ignored it. Very important. We made a policy that forbids the creation and the participation in these groups. First time ever. AB 2659, I sponsored that with Assemblyman Mike Gibson. It was signed into law by the governor on end of September. And this bans the taking or the dissemination of photographs at crash scenes of the deceased. Very important legislation that was necessary. It was not available when we had the tragic helicopter crash in January that took the life of Kobe Bryant and 8 members of that helicopter. Very important. We hired 1,100 deputies in 1 year, a record, and we hired them from our local community. And that is very important for a commitment to community policing. And we want to make sure our own kids are the ones that become the deputies that serve our own communities. The leadership ranks of the department is the most diverse in the history of the department. We literally got rid of the good old boy network. I have 4 division chiefs that are female, first time ever in the history of the department. 2 assistant sheriffs, Latinas, first time ever in the history of the department. The entire department plus the leadership ranks now looks like the communities that we're serving. Okay? The COVID crisis in the jails, very important. No one had the challenges that we faced when the pandemic hit. In February, way before anybody else did anything, we took the initiative. We started decompressing the population, released over 5,000 inmates. And to date, with the nation's largest jail system, we've tragically lost only 5 inmates, which is an incredible statistic when you have single jail systems that have lost hundreds of inmates. So a huge thing. And what we did was a template for the entire nation. Civil unrest, again, in all the areas patrolled by the Sheriff's Department, there was no widespread looting, arson, vandalism, or injuries from anybody. That was not true of the Fairfax district, not true of Long Beach, not true of Santa Monica. Everyone saw all the damage there. We did a far better job and with minimal injuries. Very important. The overtime budget, we cut it in half. We created a transparency tab on our website. So everything, and I spoke about this to you about 2 years ago. Everything that we do, we're putting on the website. We want everybody able to have the information in their own hands. That is my commitment to transparency. And regarding ghost guns, now I'm a national advocate to ban the manufacture and distribution of ghost gun kits. Very, very important in terms of weapons legislation. And now it's being taken up, thankfully, by legislators at the state and the federal level. And we're going to be pushing that. These are all things that obviously is not the conservative red meat sheriffs of yore across the nation. I'm kind of out on a limb on the left on this, but it's very important because these are my core beliefs. It's consistent with your beliefs. But having said all that, I'll leave it at that, and I'm eager to address your questions, and I'll throw it back to you, Melissa.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to take a peek at some of the questions. One of our members has asked, when you originally sought the endorsement of our Democratic Club, you said that as sheriff, due process for everyone is your job. Can you point to examples in your tenure so far that would illustrate this, or how you will implement that in the future?
Very good example. I had two cases that was of concern, and one was the tragic disappearance of Maitrice Richardson, and this happened in the Malibu Lost Hills. Remember, she was released in the middle of the night, suffering from mental illness, and then her body was discovered, or her remains, about 9 months later. There was questions about that investigation. There was also questions about the in-custody death of John Horton, and I heard from these during the campaign. So when I became sheriff, I had a team of homicide investigators and internal criminal investigation investigators take a look at both cases, and they picked them apart. They redid the entire thing. They interviewed people that walked through crime scenes. They did everything, looked at all the records, and arrived at conclusions that are not different from the ones that were developed then. But the important thing was it gave a sense that we actually looked to make sure we didn't miss something, that there was not someone out there. That the case on Maitrice is still an open case. We're still looking for the reason why she passed away. And if it is a homicide, we want to know. And we obviously want to catch the bad guy. But we're still left as an unknown decision. St. Anne Horton, that is a tragedy. It's an example of mental illness that needs to be treated. And, my heart goes out to the Horton family. However, that one was a suicide. There was a suicide note, and he did everything consistent with a suicide. And unfortunately, the family doesn't want to accept that. But that is the reality. But that is an issue of due process. Something else we've changed. And this, I spoke to a Sergeant Super School. These are the brand new sergeants. I talked to them about the case law, the laws that are on the book tell us what we can legally do, but we're entertaining the concept of what we should do. And that's a big difference from the past, because in the past, we measured success by how many people went to jail. That's not a measure of success anymore. It's how many relationships we're building with the community, how we're engaged with them. So we're going from an enforcement model to an engagement model. And that means we're going to protect kids. They're growing up in some very tough circumstances, so they avoid a prison rap sheet, for example. So they avoid that arrest record, and they can move on to have a successful career without having that stigma attached to them. This is all due process, and this is weighing the spirit of law versus the letter of the law. And that's a conversation in the past was unheard of. But my commitment is to the community, make sure everyone moves forward safely.
Thank you. On another topic, I'm going to jump around a little bit because we do have a lot of different questions from members about a variety of themes. This one, as you know, we are, or maybe you don't know, we are now a 100% corporate-free club. All of our endorsed candidates now, in addition to signing the unendorsement pledge that you signed, also have to sign a corporate-free pledge. So this question is about that. So nationwide, police reformers are calling on political candidates to forswear campaign contributions from police or sheriff's unions. You were heavily bankrolled by such police and sheriff union contributions in your 2018 race. Will you now return or forswear such money in the future?
I think there's a caveat we need to understand there, that the money that was spent on that campaign came from super PACs, political action committees, and it did not fall into my hands. I had one donation of $1,500, I believe, from ALADS, which is the maximum contribution. And POPA, the other union, the rival union, so to speak, they supported the incumbent. So it was kind of both packs kind of squared off, and it became a push, I guess, so to speak, in blackjack. So I'm more than happy to accept that challenge, and I have no problem with that. In fact, as we speak right now, we only have 3 unions that are represented by employees, and that is SEIU 721, that's a Peace Officer Professional Association, and ALADS, and I can reject from all 3.
Okay. Another question is related to the Civilian Oversight Commission. In the wake of the 8-member Civilian Oversight Commission of the LA County Sheriff's Department voting unanimously 8-0 on October 15th for your resignation, you stated, quote, their political philosophies they are really hate cops, or they slightly hate cops, or they're not too sure. So the question is, especially when one commission member is a retired sheriff's lieutenant, 2 commission members are former prosecutors, including the former head of the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency, and 1 commission is a former judge, how could you make such a statement?
Well, all you have to do is their comments. You don't, whatever someone's occupation in when they were working is one thing, but when they become retired and they adapt a different political philosophy, but all they have to look at is at the comments of these people. If I saw 3 people that were supporting law enforcement, supporting the goals of the sheriff's department, and not throwing rocks at it all the time, I'd say, okay, that would be consistent, but they're not. They're behaving exactly the way as I described it. And what we need a balanced Civilian Oversight Commission that represents the entire body politic and the community. I have 7 out of 9 commissioners are attorneys. 1 out of 9 are Latinos. And that is very troubling to me because that is not reflective of the diversity of LA County. They are all appointed by the Board of Supervisors. But if I go to the police commission with LAPD, 5 of them, I believe, are appointed by the mayor, but the city council appoints the other ones. So there's somewhat of a balance there. And this is about checks and balances. Right now, there are no checks and balances between the board and the Civilian Oversight Commission. And that is my concern, because that, again, that goes to due process and a violation of due process. And this is all about fairness. And I'm going to insist on fairness. I need an effective oversight commission that represents the community. And right now, I don't have that. I'm still looking for that. I'd like to see the commission actually elected by the people. Then I'd get a really honest opinion across, LA County. All I'm getting now is the political views of the Board of Supervisors and their appointed surrogates on the commission. That is not very effective.
So just to follow up on that, why do you believe sheriffs should be elected? Do you think sheriffs should be elected as well?
Yes, because remember, the Board of Supervisors represents both the legislative and the executive branch of government all in one. The LA County Board of Supervisors, their budget is greater than the budgets of 40 states. The size of LA County, if it was a state, it would be, I believe, the 8th largest state in the nation. It's governed by 5 individuals, has no checks and balances. They have no oversight. The only oversight that exists, and that's very minimal, is the independently elected sheriff and the independently elected district attorney. So we are literally the checks and balance, and it's written into the California Constitution for that very same purpose. And let me give you a practical reason why the sheriff should be elected. If you look at what happened in the Fairfax district, what happened in Santa Monica, what happened in Long Beach, those are appointed chiefs of police, and they can do a job effectively with their officers, but they have to go through a gauntlet of opinions of the people above that appoint them before they can carry out their job. And in a case of civil unrest, they were always too late for the show. Whenever they reacted late and with tragic results. That's why thousands of people lost their job during this period of civil unrest. They didn't have to if they were proactive and thinking ahead, but they have to ask for permission at a critical time when they should have the authority to act in the interest of the community.
So do you also believe that city council should no longer be able to fire police chiefs? Or do you think police chiefs should be elected just like sheriffs?
No, I think it's fine the way it is. Remember, you have two different versions of law enforcement leadership. You have the appointed chiefs for municipalities, but you also have a city manager, and you have the mayor and the city council. And then you have the sheriff, and we have our own system. We have, for example, I serve at the pleasure of the voters, and the voters exercise their independence on November of 18, and that's why they voted out the incumbent. They voted me into office. I continue to serve at the pleasure of the citizens, and that authority comes from the people. It comes from the Constitution. If it's derived from the Board of Supervisors, who already control an enormous amount of county government, we're really heading down some dark waters here, because there are no more any checks and balances. There's no separation of powers. And the sheriff and the district attorney provide that very limited separation of powers, and we have to keep it that way.
Okay, here's a question about the Inspector General. We read that you are blocking the ability of the Inspector General, whose responsibility is to investigate, expose, and correct wrongdoing in the Sheriff's Department, to have access to the information needed to do their job. What do you have to say to attempt to justify this abuse of power?
Well, one, I'd say there's no abuse of power at all. And for example, the inspector general, every deputy involved shooting, they go to the crime scene, they go through a walkthrough with the homicide investigators. They're part of the process at the initial phase of a deputy involved investigation, deputy involved shooting. We have critical incident review that happens typically a week or 2 weeks later, where all the information is presented to the executive. Again, the inspector general participates there. And then when the information is presented to the district attorney through the Justice System Integrity Division, the inspector general receives the entire case file. He's received over 170 of these, and I have to repeat that. He's received over 170 of these, and he's not issued one opinion. So he has all the information, but he doesn't do anything with it. What you see him do is jumping up and down. I don't have access. He claims like an Andres Guardado, or no, Dijon Kizzy. Oh, I didn't go to, I was blocked from going to the autopsy. No, we don't do the autopsy. The coroner does. And he apparently didn't set his alarm or something, because he's been to every other one and we haven't done anything different. So what he says and reality are two different things. And I need to emphasize that. He also has access to PRMS, which is Personnel Record Management System. And this online system allows him to access files. And he has to go to the internal affairs to have permission to access certain files, and that's required by law. And any concept that that somehow blocks his ability is nonsense. He has the information, but he doesn't do anything with it. And I'm very concerned about that, because if our homicide investigators are doing something wrong, they would like to know about it too. But we get no information from him at all. It's like talking to a wall. If you go to our website, lasd.org, you can see all of our information that's public, including our interactions with OIG, with the Civilian Oversight Commission. And he is not for lack of information from the Sheriff's Department.
Okay. This is a question of great concern. All of these are of great concern to us, actually, but hold on, I lost it here. Yeah, what can you say about the way journalists and press have been attacked by your officers on the street?
Well, we had, I believe, 2 incidents in particular that raised some eyebrows, obviously. One of them was the arrest of the KPCC reporter, Josie Huang. The other one was a Fox 11 reporter at the scene of, it was an arrest of a juvenile. And the deputy mistakenly believed that he had to shield the juvenile from being recorded in public. And he was addressed, and that problem was resolved. It was just a lack of understanding, but obviously the deputy was well-intentioned. He was trying to shield the juvenile from being recorded. And the other case on the KPCC reporter, we have to understand what happened that day. And there was mistakes made by our personnel, for sure. There was mistakes made by the reporter. for sure. And I think the confluence of both sets of mistakes led to the outcome there. And right now we've gone a long way to fix those mistakes, because now we're addressing that. In Super School, we invited the LA Press Club and the RTNA, which is radio, television, news agency. And this is the conglomerate of all the reporters and TV and radio. And they actually attended our sergeant supervisory course, and they offered an hour of instruction to the newly promoted sergeants, which is very, very important. We had a roundtable discussion with the LA Press Club about how we can improve relationships between the media and the sheriff's department, because we want them out there. We don't want them to get hurt, but we want them out there reporting. And in fact, they have access to every scene except a crime scene. And our only request, again, and this is something that would have helped in the case of Josie Wang, she got too close to the action for sure, but the deputies didn't wait enough time to give her a chance to react and get away to safety. Because other reporters were covering the same scene, but they did it safely from across the street. She was the only one that was right there in the midst of the deputies. And that's where the mistakes happen on both sides. We're corrected those mistakes, and we're putting out a lot of information to all our deputies at all the briefings about the rights and the responsibilities of reporters, and our responsibilities to make sure they're safe and they can continue to record just from a safe position.
So kind of following up on that one, and you might have answered it, but in the aftermath of the KPCC reporter being beat up, you said that she didn't identify herself. And fast forward to last week, you said, I think her not associating herself so closely with the people who were chanting for the deputies to die would have helped. Do you, now that you say that there were mistakes made, do you plan on apologizing to Ms. Huang? And do you think it's okay for a public official to blame a journalist, a female journalist, for her being assaulted and arrested on false pretenses?
Well, this is where I'm going to have to disagree with you. The arrest was valid. It was legal. It was based on probable cause. Now, there's a difference between probable cause for arrest and proving a case beyond reasonable doubt for a successful prosecution. Hence, the DA's office rejected the case and said it was insufficient evidence. Doesn't mean lack of evidence, two different things. I would love to sit down with Josie Huang and discuss what went through, and definitely we want to apologize for any inconvenience on her part, but we also want to explain to her where she could have done better as well. We got to do both things. And we have a video of her, and this is where some of the confusion arose. There was a group of protests, a small group, about 4 or 5. They were in front of the emergency entrance to the hospital. They were chanting for the deputies to die. And I got to emphasize that. And she walked up to them and stood next to them and then pointed her cell phone back at the deputies who were approaching them. So you can see from the perspective of the deputies, they may not really understand what her role was. It wasn't quite the same, because all of the other reporters were across the street at a safe distance recording this. So there was a bit of confusion there, but I'd love to have this conversation with her and get her perspective on it. But we have to, we respect and we value the press at all times, but we have to also recognize that in the heat of the moment, particularly that moment, which I think was a first in the entire nation, that people wished for the death of deputies who were, tragically ambushed. It was shocking in many ways. And I think, like I said, mistakes were made. And on behalf of the entire organization, I have to apologize to what she went through, but we have to learn from it.
So in addition to journalists and press, there have been concerns with how protesters and activists on the streets exhibiting their free speech have been treated. So at times we've seen your deputies unjustly fire rubber bullets and tear gas on the entire crowd when a single protester throws an object like a bottle of water. What protocols do you have in place for dealing with these situations?
One, the deputies never fire indiscriminately at a crowd, because one, they only address the person who's actually assaulting the deputies on the line. And we have pretty much the videotape to show that. Those bottles that they're doing, they're frozen. And it is like throwing a chunk of rock. It is very dangerous, and it is considered assault with a deadly weapon. So I will tell you this. if you look at compare the injuries sustained by people who were protesting in LAPD's areas during this heightened period of civil unrest, in ours, we were rather restrained by comparison. We didn't use side-handled batons at all, and we used a minimum amount of force. If you look at the injuries sustained by people in these protests, it was also very minimal. I compare this to 1992. We had 63 people were killed. We had hundreds and hundreds of people who were injured severely, and we had over $2 billion in damage sustained. Thousands of businesses that were lost. This time it was a lot less. We did not use tear gas. We only used the pepper balls. And this is a very big difference now. You can see we're improving. Is it a perfect science? No, it is not. However, when people went to the Hall of Justice, the building where my office is, and there was 20,000 surrounding the building, and everyone did a wonderful job. They protested. We actually provided the security for them. We blocked the streets so they wouldn't interface and interact with traffic and get hurt. And not a single person was injured. But when you show up at one of my stations wearing football gear at midnight, you're not there to protest. We have to stop that mixing up the two things, because they're not the same thing. And it turns out the people that were there, for example, at South LA, were not from South LA. The residents of South LA were fed up with them, and they voiced their displeasure at them. So we got to distinguish between two.
My personal question is, what difference does it make where they're from, whether they're from South LA or not?
Well, because the people that live in the neighborhood is disrespectful to have this entire thing in their own community where they no longer have access to their property. They can't get in and get out freely. And it's disrespectful to that local community. When you do things in daylight and it's in a controlled environment where you're not going to impact negatively on the community, that's the right way to do things. You make your point well known, it's seen by all. But when you're assaultive, you're destroying property, that is not a peaceful protest. And that's what they were trying to do at South LA. And they succeeded with the front sign of the station that was on the sidewalk, but they put the yellow barriers and they protected the rest of the station so it wasn't damaged. And that's probably the difference.
So we have Glory Jones here with us. She has actually been personally affected and was on the ground at several protests, and she's here and she'd like to talk to you, address you. Maybe she might have some questions. Glory, you're unmuted.
Sure.
Thank you. I mean, I think it's incredibly gracious that you're even allowing Sheriff Vilanueva a chance to defend himself, because honestly, what's been done to protesters at the hand of LASD is downright criminal and fascistic. Okay, your minor injuries, it's a lie. I'm sorry. I have a friend named Andy who was bashed in his legs with a shield. His legs were bashed in by a sheriff on top of him with a shield. I know people that have black eyes because they were shot with pepper balls in the face. We went to your sheriff station. Yes, at night. We came with here because that was after weeks and months of your employees tear gassing, pepper spraying, macing, and just straight up shooting at us. So of course we're gonna come with protection. And declared our protest unlawful within 2 minutes and proceeded to fire pepper balls at us and try to arrest all of us. And to make everything worse, I'm sorry, but your justification of all of this, of a complete violation of rights, has been weak and downright up until now. Your men are illegally detaining, searching, and taking pictures of protesters. I myself was waiting to go home. I was waiting for a ride home with a group of friends, and your employee, Brian Mueller, and a gang of sheriffs grabbed us, threw us into their cars, and then illegally went through our belongings, searched us. They took pictures of our records and our faces with their mobile phones. Why are they doing that? I don't know. It's a complete violation of our First Amendment rights. It's an utter disgrace. And honestly, it's completely gracious that Melissa's even allowing this to happen, because if I had an ounce of character left, I would resign right now.
Thanks, Glory. Alex, would you mind addressing her directly? And maybe
Well,
another question is about that illegal search and seizure of protesters who are exercising their First Amendment right.
I can tell you this, every single use of force is investigated. They're all documented. And the press, the public has a right to tape what we do. All, particularly when we're in the receiving end of having stuff thrown at us, we are going to videotape and we're going to record what's coming from the other direction. Okay, that is very important. So every single complaint is properly investigated. If Lori Jones believes she was somehow mistreated in any way, by all means, let us know about it. And probably the case is already being investigated. But the facts are that if you look at the stuff that we received from people, these protesters who were dressed in football attire, I'm just wondering what was the point that was to be made at midnight in South LA that couldn't be made in broad daylight. And I'm going to support peaceful protesters all day long. However, when a declaration of unlawful assembly is made, you have to follow the rule of law. You have to honor it. And if you think somehow that protesting the declaration of unlawful assembly somehow is going to have a good consequence, it's not. We doing it for a particular reason. And that might be because of traffic, that you're going to all of a sudden create another havoc that someone else might get injured on. This is very true, particularly when people go onto the freeway and stop the freeway. Someone can get killed doing that. And those are unlawful assemblies. So we're going to continue doing things the right way. We're going to continue documenting them all. And we do all investigations on use of force. And I think, I can't really speak further than that, Melissa. I think that pretty much covers it.
So let me see. Part of that is about, hold on, I wanted to continue on that. What evidence do you have which prompted you to state that there were outside agitators inflaming issues at these protests, which then you had your deputies search and seize protesters who were exercising the First Amendment right?
Well, I will give you a good example. Actually, it wasn't from our department, but it was very emblematic of it. Well, first, when an order to disperse is given, it is illegal to remain there, and that is a legal standing to take enforcement action after that. And that is on solid ground, all right? So people who don't disperse after the order is given, they're subject to detention and arrest. But LAPD, we had a deputy-involved shooting just last week. LAPD had one a few hours before we had ours. And there was 4 gentlemen in a vehicle. They saw the LAPD drive by, and they were cracking jokes that look that they're going to jam us and harass us, so to speak. And the officers did turn around and go back to them. What they didn't know that there was a man armed with a handgun approaching their vehicle who was going to shoot them. And the officer intervened and saved the 4 individuals in that vehicle. So they got the surprise of their life because the officers were doing the right thing. They were looking out for their best interest. And sometimes people don't understand that, but if you look at the amount of violence that happens in South LA, Westmont in particular, it's astonishing. And we're doing everything we can to keep people alive. In that 1 mile radius of the Dijon Kizzee shooting alone, 12 homicides, actually now 13 now, since the beginning of the year, 168 assaults with a deadly weapon, over 115 arrests of people with handguns, and they're there to use them. That is a level of violence that is frightening. It holds people hostage in their own homes because they're afraid to step outside for fear of getting shot. And we're going to work hard. We're not going to abandon them. We're going to make sure they stay safe.
So someone is asked to ask you about executioners in Compton under your leadership and LA Sheriff's Department. Whistleblowers claim that the deputy who shot Andres Guardado had no reason other than he was trying to join the same law enforcement gang. Can you address this?
Well, I can say this, that when, because of the policy that I have that bans the formation and participation in these deputy subgroups, we take aggressive action from the onset. We got wind of a fight between 2 employees, 2 deputies at Compton Station. and it was reported by a third party. And this is something people are unaware of. We reported it immediately to the FBI. We asked them to participate and assist us in this investigation, and we launched a criminal investigation. This is before anything became public with this claim from an attorney about executioners. So we take the matter seriously. We're investigating right now, and we'll take appropriate action once the investigation is completed. But we can't share the details of this because remember, we have to also respect the due process rights of the employees. And that's something that I'm saddled with. Sometimes it's cumbersome, but it's the same thing that applies to the community, also applies to the employees.
So back to protesters being detained, were they illegally detained?
If they were detained as a result of failure to disperse when an unlawful assembly, they're not illegally detained at all. And that's on solid legal ground.
Okay, someone has asked if things are going so well, why are killings continuing with multiple wounds and people being shot in the back?
Well, that conversation is part of the crowd that wants to defund law enforcement in general. But if you go back 16 years, the last 16 years, I did the math, we averaged 36 deputy-involved shootings a year. Right now, we're sitting on 26, and we're towards the end of the year. So the number really hasn't changed a whole lot. Murders in LA County are up 21%. Deputy-involved shootings are actually flat or slightly lower than the 16-year average. And that is the hard facts, hard realities. However, because of social media and because of these things, it's real easy to have this imagination that there's, deputy-involved shootings happening everywhere and they're all unjustified or they're murders. The hard, cold reality is they're not. It's just a small percentage of what is really happening, which is tragic, is all these murders that are happening. We make, as a department, 2.5 million contacts per year. Let me emphasize it, 2.5 million contacts per year. This year, that has netted us 26 deputy-involved shootings. And during the course of that time, we have arrested thousands of violent suspects, hundreds of armed suspects successfully. So we're doing everything we can to stay safe, keep the community safe, but it's not a perfect science. And there's just way too many guns out there on the street, and I need to resolve that issue.
So we have some social media press, independent press here with us this evening, also who have been affected by the Sheriff's Department. I've even seen pictures of the wounds and whatnot. So the question is, when you mention press, you say TV and radio, and you make no mention of social media press or independent press. What do you deem press? And why are your sheriffs harassing the young press of tomorrow?
Well, we refer to the RTNA, which is a radio and television organization, the LA Press Club. We're talking about established media outlets. And if I go from established media outlets to freelance individuals or self-appointed or self-described journalists, I have people, in fact, who were dressed in full football gear and they spray painted press on their helmet, and they were in the middle of the crowd throwing stuff at the deputies in South LA. Are they the press? No, anybody can pick up a cell phone and say, I'm the press. And as long as you're recording where you have a legal right to be, you can record all you want. And we want to make sure you do that. And we're going to protect your right to do that. Okay? And we're educating our deputies to constantly be doing that. And that is a very important thing. Now, are we going to afford the same opportunities to these individuals who are self-appointed versus the traditional media? No. You just got
see it. I got it.
Yeah.
Let me see what I can do. I don't know if I can get rid of it. Oh, I've never been Zoom bombed before. Let's see.
I was afraid this was gonna happen sooner or later. Sorry about that, Melissa.
That's okay. Are there any suggestions? Do people know what to do in this case?
I don't know. Do we log off, log back on, or?
I'll just start removing people.
Yeah, I think you can
Maybe
remove.
that could help.
Oh, that, by the way, that one right there that just did that, that's someone who's unhappy because they're one of these, I guess, trolls, internet trolls, and they're.
Okay.
I recognize the name.
All right. Well, I'd like to, since that's gone at the moment, I'd like to continue. And I won't be letting any new people in. But there's a question. Have you finished answering that question?
I think we did.
All right.
Yes.
The question is, have you ever been or still affiliated with a gang or so-called sheriff's clique?
Whoa, me?
Yeah.
You know what? that is a funny question. One, because I've never been affiliated with anything. In fact, I was at East LA Station. I was known as the Flecha, or the straight arrow, because I wouldn't go to the river and drink with the deputies at the river or get tattoos or anything like that. However, my social media accounts were hacked, and then someone did an imitation of my Facebook and Twitter accounts and claimed that I was covered in tattoos, that I'm a member of the Bandidos, this and that. It's all fake. And to this day, I still see people on social media, show me your tats, this and that. And it's all nonsense. So.
Okay. A couple more questions here. The ACLU is calling for you to resign and suing in court as well for obstructing an independent investigation of the June 2020 officer-involved shooting of Andres Guardado, which prompted the FBI to step in. Killing investigations into officers accused of child abuse, domestic violence, and rape, and blocking access now to public records. We are inclined to join the ACLU. Presumably you disagree. Please explain why.
Okay, you packed a lot into that one statement there. Let's unpack some of it. First of all, the Andres Guardado shooting, we approached the Attorney General and asked them to monitor our case. We did that, okay? And every case that we actually investigate is reviewed by the Justice System Integrity Division. People are unaware of this, but the Inspector General doesn't investigate. They monitor, they can review, they can critique, but they're not charged with investigating a case. That is very important because you have to have the credentials, the training, and be in the official capacity to conduct a criminal investigation. And the Inspector General cannot do that. That's very, very important people understand. But we do have them participate. We want them to monitor it. They go to the crime scene. They do the walkthrough with the homicide investigators. They do it along with the Justice System Integrity Division. They attend the critical incident review. They attend the autopsy, assuming they set their alarm clock. They attend the autopsy at the coroner, the medical examiner's office. So they have all this information. And when we have the case completed, they get to review it and make a determination. And that's where we get nothing back from the Inspector General. So a lot of hot air coming from there, very short on facts. In terms of Andres Guardado, we invite the FBI constantly. We're inviting the Attorney General constantly to review our cases, to go side by side with us. And they are reviewing that case, their Civil Rights Division of the FBI. All we want is fair and unbiased oversight. That's all we're asking for. Because whatever thing, if we're doing something wrong or we're short somewhere, please let us know and we can adjust. Remember, this is a very, very large organization and we're moving that ship. We're moving in the right direction. And reform is happening, okay? All we got to do is drown out all the naysayers because they're not bringing any facts to the table. They're bringing noise. We're delivering on reform.
So how do you address the criticisms about some of the fired sheriff deputies you brought back when you were elected, such as your personal driver, Karen Mandonia?
Very good. That is another exercise in due process. And this is another case where the Inspector General failed us because when we reviewed the case, we reviewed it with County Council and there was no decision ahead of time, let's just bring it back. No, see what the case was and if it was investigated properly and based on that, make a determination. And it turns out we dug up all the old emails from the McDonald administration. They themselves said it was not a termination case. They themselves said it was going to be disposed at a lower level, at a suspension. And they also said it was unresolved, the issue of false statements. But all that changed with Max Huntsman. And then we found out that the complainant in that case in particular was allowed to edit her own evidence. And a witness was concealed by the department. For me, that is a crime. It's called subordination of perjury, because you put someone on the stand to testify and commit perjury, and you knew it, and you didn't advise the defense on that. That'll get you in trouble. I could not act on it because the statute of limitations had already expired when I took office. But those are the things we learned about in the Mendoyan case. There was a total of 6 cases that were brought back. 6 cases. And of the 6 cases, Mendoyan was one. We had another case where the statute of limitations expired. We had 3 cases where the Oversight Commission, not Oversight, the Civil Service Commission ordered the reinstatement of the deputies. So I rely on the Council of County Council when we make our decisions. We're constantly doing that. And what people are unaware of, we've discharged 68 people already, 68. And I added my own signature to every single discharge case. In the past, it wasn't done. It was deferred to other people. But as an added measure for checks and balances, I review every case prior to discharge. I've signed 68 of these. We've also initiated 60 criminal investigations of our own employees, 60 of them. 15 of them have resulted in cases that the DA has filed in court. And the balance of 45 are still being investigated, or the resulted there was no evidence to pursue a prosecution. So we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing to hold our employees accountable, but we're conforming to the rule of law. In the last 2 months, I've had 2 cases of wrongful terminations. Each one is going to cost me more than $1 million. I have 30 more cases in the docket. I'm afraid to know what that bill is going to look like. Because when you violate due process and you conceal exculpatory information, we pay the price as an employer. And all these cases were from the prior sheriffs. And it takes years for these cases to come to fruition. Now the chickens are all coming home to roost. And I'm stuck with the bill. Just like all these cases of excessive force and damages that's been awarded during my tenure, every single one has been for my predecessors. Not a single case has been from my administration. People are unaware of that. And but we're doing everything to lower cases of excessive force or preventable traffic collisions, which actually tends to be the most expensive things in terms of punitive damages. So it's a challenge, but we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing, and we're doing it the right way, which is very, very important.
Now, do you consider the LA Sheriff's Department deputy whistleblower's claim that Andres Guardado was killed because of the gang tattoos?
Well, one, I don't consider him to be a whistleblower at all. And he's anointed himself as a whistleblower, but he has not revealed anything. A true whistleblower has information, and they take it to their supervisors, to the employer, and they suffer some form of retaliation as a result of it. This case, none of that has happened. So this is an ongoing investigation, so I'm not going to comment going into the details on that. But all I can say is that when we have all the facts and the investigation is completed, we're going to take the appropriate action to all parties involved.
So the claim that he was killed for gang tattoos, are you?
I have no information to support that at all.
Okay, now, Joey, you've had your hand raised, and I've tried to ask you on the side if you could please text me your question. Would you mind? I'm just going to lower your hand because I don't want you to feel you've been ignored, but text me your question so I can add it to the list. The list has been, we're getting through the list, and thank you, Sheriff Vilanueva, for being here. So let's see, let me see here. Yeah, we're asking a lot of these questions. I've also asked some of the media's questions. So someone had put in the chat, can the Convo Couch please ask some questions? Many of these questions incorporated were also from the Convo Couch because we shared as a club the same questions. Why did you permit the reinstatement of the Fort Apache logo?
Very good question. One, the Fort Apache is removed from the logo. And we did that as an exercise in caution. We went to the president of the Apache Nation, White Mountain, and that's where there's an actual physical location called Fort Apache in the White Mountain Reservation. We spoke to the chief, and we asked them, what do you think about this logo with the Fort Apache? They said they have no problem with it whatsoever. And remember, historically, it's been twisted what the origins of the logo means. And that low profile logo with the helmet and the boot had nothing to do with the East LA moratorium, the Chicano moratorium of 1970. It was your reaction of Peter Pitches telling the deputies to keep a low profile, to stay out of public view. And he kept reiterating that over and over again to a deputy. East LA got so exasperated with this, with his lieutenant, he showed him a helmet and a boot. You want us to go this low? That is how the emblem was created. And somehow it got twisted over just in the last 2 or 3 years into something evil, but it's been around for 50 years. And actually there's a lot of people in East LA, residents, who wear the logo and attire from that place. But
So-
we removed the Fort Apache on the logo itself just as a precaution.
So this is about defunding the police. Defunding the police means to stop prosecuting people for minor crimes and putting that money in the community. Why are you against that? And if not, what do you suggest?
Well, right now I lost $145 million, which is about 8% of our budget. We've lost all of our youth activity leagues. We're closing Parks Bureau, which provides police services, law enforcement present at all the county parks. And now we're faced with closing a jail facility and cramming 700 inmates into other facilities. And that's going to be a massive increase in our threat of the COVID-19 pandemic. This is a result of defunding currently. I'm not even getting into Measure J, what that could do. And right now, Prop 47 already does exactly what you're asking for, but the defunding is an entirely different thing. Measure J is profoundly dishonest because it doesn't tell you that when you lose 10% of your budget, what happens to the department? That would be 18% because our starting point is already the current 8%, plus an additional 10%. That is almost 20% of the Sheriff's Department budget. That will result in the closure of at least 2 patrol stations, of a second jail system, and a reduction of our investigators to investigate crimes, particularly homicide, major crimes, Special Victims Bureau, because these are all paid through net county cost, which is exactly what Measure J is targeting. There are consequences defunding, and the people who are going to pay the price are the ones that can least afford it. They're going to come from all these marginalized communities that suffer a disproportionate amount of gun-related violence.
So we back to the question about the press, because freedom of press is so important. I'm going to unmute the Convo Couch. They're here, graciously here, and they have a question about that.
Yeah.
So let me unmute them. Go ahead, you guys.
Hello, Sheriff Vilanueva. Thank you for joining us today and answering these questions. You said traditional press, okay, and that was a little disturbing to us over here because we have a right to be there. Why has your officers removed some of these kids who are young journalists of tomorrow? Your sheriffs have been filmed even calling them out by name and telling them to leave when they have every right to be there, and you should be protecting them, and you can issue them press passes, can't you, or press credentials? Why haven't you personally reached out to these young journalists and get them the proper credentials so their safety is number one issue when they're there?
Well, let's put it this way. Why don't they reach out to my Sheriff's Information Bureau? I don't know where these people are. They know where we are. We're at 211 West Temple Avenue, and come on in. Let's see what they want to do, how they want to be covered. Let's get their identification. We'll issue them a press pass so they can have their own little thing and hang it from their neck. And now we can separate who's who in the zoo.
Yeah, but your officers know them. Your officers have said their names. They're YouTubers, but they are allowed to be there for freedom of the press. It seems like you're overreaching your badge when you tell these kids that they have to leave just because traditional press won't go to these protests and make sure there's accountability. These young kids will, and it's just a shame that they're being whisked off with no rhyme or reason. I mean, technically, they don't even have to get those credentials from you. They still have a right to be there and film.
Well, when you declare an unlawful assembly, and I could have, let's say I have 20 people in an unlawful assembly, all 20 break out the cell phone camera. Are they all 20 journalists now? And it's no longer an unlawful assembly because they're recording? There has to be a little bit of common sense involved in here. If someone wants to claim they're a journalist, they want to film things, get the press pass so we can at least okay, you're claiming to be this, good, by all means. But let's go through a process where we can identify you and start break down some of these barriers. But our goal is not to inhibit anybody from recording anything. But if you're in the wrong place in the middle of an unlawful assembly, well, you need to leave that unlawful assembly, record it from a distance at least, at a minimum.
I just wanted to address something. You mentioned the football gear of these protesters, and sometimes some of these journalists that are coming back out in football gear, the helmets, the riot gear, the gas masks. That makes you uncomfortable. However, the reason these people are coming out in this gear, including the press, is because of the events that have been happening since May 30th as a result of the George Floyd protests. Multiple journalists have been caught in the crossfire and have been assaulted with rubber bullets, have been literally limping, almost had their eye taken out. And this is why people are showing up in this gear. Isn't it a little hypocritical to point out the guard, like the appearance of these protesters and these journalists with this gear while your sheriffs are wearing riot gear when there is a peaceful protest? And also peaceful protests, they don't all have to happen during the daytime. Sometimes these protests have started in the evening at 4 or 5 o'clock and they go on into the night. Sometimes these protests have started 15 minutes and then it's declared a unlawful assembly. So where is the actual distinction as to what is an unlawful assembly, and also the hypocrisy of what do you expect them not to wear anything and also get hit? This is why people are wearing what they're wearing.
If you're assaultive or you're destroying property, it becomes an unlawful assembly. And I'll give you a classic example of that. At West Hollywood Station, I was there. They had a protest march, and into the night, it was around, I think, 11 o'clock at night. And we had two vehicles, two pickup trucks, a white one and a black one, leading the charge and everyone behind them. And there was a bunch of people with umbrellas. And then they'd open the umbrellas, and then the people hiding behind the umbrellas started tagging all the buildings. That's an unlawful assembly, all right? If an unlawful assembly is declared, even if you're a journalist, you do not have a right to be in the middle of the unlawful assembly and stand your ground. No journalist has that right, okay? And every Wednesday, we have hundreds of protesters that show up in downtown LA, right in front of my building, to protest Jackie Lacey. And they've been doing it for 2 years now, with nary anything happening. And we even block off the street for them so they can occupy the street safely and they don't get run over by a car. We're going to accommodate peaceful protest. But I'm sorry, if you're showing up in football gear, you are not part of a peaceful protest. That is, I can't get more clear than that.
All right.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Officer Villanueva, because they have to protect themselves, and even the press lady, was it Mrs. Wang? She had press credentials on. We have press credentials on. My team has been arrested.
Oh, time out.
Yeah.
What she had on was a work access card. She forgot her press credential.
But we knew she was press, and you still continued to arrest her.
Wait.
Eventually, after she identified herself as press, and people helped and identified she was press, she was still arrested.
When you're being handcuffed, it's too late to say you're the press. You have to do that before. Then. And again, we already discussed that. There was mistakes made on both sides, and we learned from that, and we're going to move on. And that's very important. But if you're a member of the press and unlawful assembly is declared, you have to move out of that unlawful assembly, even credentialed members of the press. And if you're hiding amongst people, if you're dressed in football gear because you claim it's for your protection, you're hiding next to the people that are throwing rocks, you're part of the problem. You're not there. You want to get exclusive shot? Well, I do recall that Vietnam War, you had journalists that went out there into the war zone and risked their own lives to get that exclusive shot. And some of them, unfortunately, paid the price for it. And that is a tragedy. But you have to recognize the environment you're inserting yourself in and be honest about it.
So on the topic of, there's a claim that the Sheriff's Department is let's see, there's a lawsuit about a refusal to release public records. Do you have a comment on the
Oh,
LA
yes.
Times lawsuit about your refusal to release
Yes.
public records to them?
Here's what happened. When I took office, SB 1421 became effective that very next month. We knew we did not have the resources to be able to satisfy the thousands of requests. We needed more personnel. We needed redaction software to be able to expedite and honor all these requests. 6 times, I'm counting them, 6 times we wrote to the CEO's office asking for funding for 11 people, 11 personnel, and the money for the redaction software was about $145,000. 6 times we were denied. 6 times. So what do? We did the next best thing. We had to cannibalize our Audit and Accountability Bureau and set aside their main function and devoted them to 1421. That still wasn't enough because we couldn't process them as fast as they were coming in. LA Times alone, in one request, asked for 500,000 emails. That's the sheer size of this. We ended up with roughly, I think, 7,000 requests for public records requests. So we went ahead and just in the last 2 months, we added 20 more people out there on this. 20 more of our personnel are now working hard. Our goal is by December 31st to have everything online, all of the requests answered. The information is available online because we want everybody to see the information for themselves. So we are working hard day and night to satisfy this PRA requests and all the requests for documentation from the OIG, from the COC, from the board. But these requests don't come cheap. Some of these requests are for thousands and thousands of pages of documents. And a lot of this stuff we cannot release because they're legally restricted. Either they're active investigations, there's confidential information that has to be redacted, victims or witnesses of crime that has to be redacted from these, and personnel records. Those ones cannot be divulged. So it is not a simple process. And like I said, transparency is expensive. LA City has everything digitized. It's real simple for them. But the county systems are all antiquated and they don't speak to each other. So there's a lot of hand searching and a lot of black magic marker action going on now to satisfy these. So anybody who claims that we're not being transparent, well, one, you haven't looked at the website. Go to LASD.org, go to the transparency tab and see all the information for yourself. And we are going to make good on December 31st is our deadline that we've imposed to get all the information out. And at the end of the day, once everybody has everything, you know what you're going to find is real simple. That we're doing some very difficult things in some very trying circumstances. And we're the difference between good and bad on any given day.
So
that's the reality.
So the county, according to the attorney representing the Times, the county, this is quote, the county and the sheriff's department are continually refusing to provide access to these important records, and that they've said they've gotten almost nothing in the 18 months since they've filed the request.
They're not being very honest right there, but I wouldn't expect the Times to be honest. But we have a 1421 tab on our website under the transparency, so you can see all the requests. And again, by December 31st, Lord willing, we're going to have all the requests honored. And that is my goal, because the business of the sheriff's department is the public's business. In fact, I campaign on that promise about transparency. We've been delivering on that. So I need people to go to LSD.org and surf through the website yourself. You're going to see about deputy-involved shootings. You're going to see about discipline, the entire contents of our manual of policy and procedures, our custody division manuals, our COVID-19 things, all the things we've been doing, it's all online. Because, again, there's only 3 things that we can't put online, and I said what those 3 are. Everything else is subject to disclosure.
So we have another member of the independent media here that I'm trying to unmute. She can introduce herself. I don't know if she's still there. I'm asking to unmute Tina, but.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Tina.
Can you hear me even though?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so Alex, I got to tell you something. I'm really disappointed with the way this is being handled tonight. I was shot at by one of your deputies, not filming on a phone, filming on my actual fixed lens camera with a light pack. I had my press credentials on, I was a safe distance away. Your sheriff, who was in West Hollywood, even though he was from Palmdale Department, was beating on a kid with a riot shield. It was totally unacceptable. The kid was not resisting arrest. He was on the ground, not moving, and they were still beating him. So one of your sheriffs turned to me and intentionally shot at me. It's inexcusable. And honestly, quite frankly, I don't want to hear any excuses about this. What you should be saying is that it's unacceptable. First Amendment rights are the one thing we should be protecting.
Well, like I said before, all use of force investigations are being conducted. That incident itself that you referred to, I've seen the video of that. I've also seen the full video of it, not the edited
full
version.
Video of it. Hang on. No, Alex, I shot the full video of it. Who did you get it from? I haven't disclosed all of that footage. So whatever don't lie. Do not fucking lie right now.
Whoa, hey, you know what? Hey.
Okay, so the question is, what footage have you seen? And maybe we need to get the full footage.
I've seen enough video of that to show that the video that's been circulated on social media is a little clip that's about 10 seconds long. I've seen one that shows the people being pulled off the pickup truck, and I've seen a deputy getting pushed over by someone who charged and rammed him from behind. Yeah, that's part of that whole fracas that happened there. So I have seen that.
Is there a way that that they can get you the full video footage so you can see everything? Clips?
Yes, I'd love to. Actually, that would help us in our investigation.
How can the independent media get you their full footage and not have it go?
If you go to SIB, all right, just contact SIB, Sheriff's Information Bureau, and they have a number which is a public number. I'm going to give it to you. Hold on right now. Let me write this down. It's going to be it's 213-229-2200. So you can call that number, and the person that has the video, they can get the video to us, and we won't release it, but we'll incorporate it as part of the investigation. And that'll help, because the more perspectives we have on this, it definitely helps in the outcome.
And why won't you release it?
Well, if we own it, we can release it. But if it belongs to someone else and they don't want to release it, well, that way we can't control that.
But if they give you permission to release it,
yeah, then we'll release the whole thing. Yeah, we have to do the whole investigation, then we can release it. Not a problem.
Okay, thank you. Have you hired any outside third-party affiliates like Blackwater to work alongside your sheriffs?
I got turned down to hire deputies, so Blackwater, Special Ops, or whatever those people that were involved in all that mess in the Middle East, no.
Okay. All right, that one's been asked. Thank you so much for still being on with us. I think we're getting through all of our questions. So maybe Paul, you can quickly go over the process of that, what we're going to do next. I'm going to sift through and see if we have any more final questions on our list. But Paul, would you mind kind of giving people an overview very briefly of what our next steps are going to be? I'll unmute you.
Are you going to get an apology for being cussed at?
Yes, thank you again for coming tonight, Sheriff Vilanueva, and just for your benefit and the benefit of our members that have joined us late. I went over this before you came into the meeting. I'll go over it again briefly now, and for the benefit of members of the public and press that are here tonight. So this is the first time we're considering exercising a clause in our bylaws for unendorsement. It pertains to Article 9 of our bylaws on our website and sent to our members ahead of this meeting. The same process takes a 60% vote to unendorse, same as to endorse. The balloting will be conducted online over the course of the next few days to allow for more members to vote. Many members couldn't be here tonight for a variety of reasons, including the upcoming November 3rd election. But as I say, 60% vote. The section 10 of Article 9 is the applicable section. And just briefly, let me read it. says any candidate seeking endorsement from the club must agree to the club's endorsement agreement prior to appearing at an endorsement meeting, which states the following. I hereby acknowledge that Feel the Burn Democratic Club, Los Angeles, reserves the right to hold a vote amongst its membership to formally and publicly withdraw its endorsement should my actions and votes no longer align with the Feel the Burn Democratic Club mission statement and should I no longer uphold those values. The club adopts other specific eligibility criteria for endorsement candidates, then potential candidates shall execute such pledges or statements as the executive board deems appropriate to satisfy the board of the candidate's eligibility before the candidate may appear. The club may vote to withdraw its endorsement from an endorsed candidate who subsequently violates the club's endorsement criteria. Said vote shall be conducted under the same rules as an endorsement vote. Reason I'm reading this bylaws stuff is I'm the parliamentarian now of Feel the Burn, and I want us to follow, proper procedure and the democratic process. So that's what we'll be doing in the days ahead. Sheriff Vilanueva and members of the club and members of the public and press, thank you all for coming. And
now, Paul, I just have 3 more questions for Mr. Villanueva, for Sheriff Villanueva. One of them is about ICE agents. Why did you replace ICE agents in the jails with private contractors doing the same or similar work?
Okay, the person who asked that question has really not been paying attention. I kicked all of ICE agents out and I did a permanent ban on all transfers to ICE's custody. All transfers. There are no contractors, there are nobody, 0. So that person needs to pay attention.
Okay. Also, you committed to hire and train new deputies that reflected the population of LA. How is that progressing?
It's progressing extremely well. Every single class now is a reflection of the community. The class that just graduated a few weeks ago, 39 of the, I think 65 spoke a second language. What bigger, a result is that? It just shows it truly. And we had 20 of them were females. And ever since I took office, I banned the recruitment of out of state. January 1st, we're raising the educational standard for deputy sheriffs to a minimum of an associate's degree. And we're going to achieve that with our local kids going through our JCs and our 4-year schools right here in LA County. So it is working very well. We're raising the standard. This is something that has never been done in the history of the department. In fact, there's a lot of firsts that we're doing now because we're reforming. Just like I said in the campaign, we're reforming, rebuilding, restoring the department to its best potential.
Okay, and my last question of the evening is, why do you maintain an adversarial position with the Citizens Oversight Committee? Why, in your opinion, were you censured by the committee?
Well, the committee is doing the bidding of the Board of Supervisors, and they're acting as their political surrogates. It's a proxy war. From the very beginning, since before I took office, they've been trying to discredit me. Then now they're in the defunding phase, and the last phase of their campaign is to destroy the sheriff's department via defunding. Myself as an elected official, everything they've been doing is pouring gas on the fire. But when you look at what we've actually accomplished, you realize we've done everything I set out to do. And I've done it in less than 2 years. It's an amazing amount of reform that has happened. You wouldn't know it listening to the Oversight Commission. You wouldn't know it at all. In fact, when they were, raging up and down about the COVID-19 in the jails, they could not bring themselves to admit that we have a small miracle happening here in the LA County jail system, where we spared the entire population from the ravages of Rikers Island, Cook County, Illinois, Texas state prison system, Adelanto at ICE, Lompoc, all these places that are ravaged, and you have dozens to hundreds of deaths. Our largest jail system in the entire nation, 5 deaths. The largest congregate living facility in the entire county, 5 deaths. The Board of Supervisors is responsible for the safety of our senior citizens in all of our assisted living facilities. Their deaths are in the thousands. Yet I'm being castigated for losing 5, and I regret all 5. But we're doing everything in our power. And you talk about the challenges. during the COVID, the fire, civil unrest, defunding, and the fact that we're still serving and we're making a difference is remarkable. And I want to leave you with this, since that was your last question. Back in 2016, Bernie Sanders, he was not the political establishment. That was Hillary Clinton. And the political establishment turned on Bernie Sanders. And he no longer became the nominee. I'm not part of the political establishment. I never will be. And I'm the only Democrat in my position in the entire nation. And I've met and I've achieved the reforms I set out to do, yet somehow I'm being painted as this adversarial, whatever you describe. But when you sift through all the nonsense, the facts are not there. And this is the political establishment.
Mr. Villanueva, one member also asked a quick yes or no question. Maybe you could answer it quickly. Are your officers at any point trained at the Gaza Strip with Israeli forces?
No. In fact, you know what? The last training we had, it happened yesterday, and it happened at the First AME Church. We had de-escalation training with deputies from our department and members of the community together at First AME Church talking about de-escalation. And this was hosted by the USC Price School. That is the training we had. That's the type of things that we're doing. And we don't brag about it. We don't talk about it. We just get it done. And it's a career politician is the one doing all the talking and the misdirecting, unfortunately, of the community.
Do you see Todd Jones in the corner? You probably remember him, but he had a quick, Todd, is it a quick question? So it's our last?
Yeah.
Okay.
He looks wrapped up.
Yeah, he's kind of wrapped up now.
I'm in a bunny suit. It's
Go ahead,
safer
Todd.
this way.
Go ahead, Todd.
So my question is, this is a softball question, but it's your chance to shine. What distinction is your administration versus that which would have been under McDonald in terms of like what guidelines, protocols would have been different for crowd control and the protest? That's where all this heat is coming from. Is how would it have been more? You know, I imagine you're softer than what McDonald would have been. So can you respond to that?
That's actually was another member had that same question. So we could end up on that one. Thanks.
All right. Well, if you look at what makes me different from my predecessor, this is getting rid of ICE entirely, getting the body-worn cameras. Those are big platforms. Remember, my predecessor abandoned the body-worn cameras in 2017, and so did the board. I resuscitated it. We got it back. We got it up and running, and it's implemented now. In spite of 20 months of opposition from the board and dragging their feet, we made it reality. But the most important thing is a shift in the culture from the enforcement model to the engagement model. That is the big shift. Now we're the guardians. We're not the warrior mindset. And we're working hard to get that instilled on all of our deputies out there in the field. And one thing is true, McDonald would have sat here to talk to you, period. And I know some of the questioning was aggressive, but I don't mind because I want to hear from the community. And there's very passionate voices that need to be heard. Even if sometimes you wonder about, where they come from, how they get the information, but that's fine. Everybody's entitled to their perspective, to their opinion. And I have to value each and every one of you for what you're doing. And, I think when we're working together, and I've said this plenty of times, if people spend energy building things up instead of tearing things down, oh, wow, what a wonderful place we'd be. And that's what I want to urge everybody to do, including your Democratic Club. Let's build together and let's create a brighter future.
All right. Thank you very much, Sheriff Villanueva, for being here. You're welcome to stay on. We still have one more guest speaker, a pair of guest speakers. They're going to be talking about the election integrity and the struggle to keep that fair. So you're welcome to be here, but I'm going to mute you.
Or you I'll say my goodbyes for now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, I'll keep you posted.
All right. Well, thank you, Melissa, for everything.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your questions and being here. And those of you who populated the interactive question list, I tried to get through as many as I could. So where are our next guest speakers? I see Jonathan at the Convo Couch. Where's Raji? Is he here?
Oh wait, tell her that.
They're going to be talking about, I believe there's a lawsuit on the LA County Registrar. So let me unmute the Convo Couch. It seems like that's where they're going to be speaking from. And should I unmute Raji Rab? I don't see. Where is
Yes.
You hear us?
Yeah, we can hear you from the Convo Couch, but what about Raji?
Raji, he says he's locked out of the meeting.
How can he get back in?
Maybe you have to unlock the meeting.
Oh, that might work. All right, and we're going to continue live streaming, although I kind of want to stop it and then restart. So just give me a second, everybody. Let me figure out how to unlock the meeting. Okay. All right, it is now unlocked. Thanks. Let me see about stop live stream for a second. All right.
Where's Roshan?
Okay, so can he get back in?
Let's see. Let me ask him to get on.
Is it Alex McElvain? Is that who it is?
No. It should say Raji's name.
All right, I don't know who this guest is. Alex is a knock editor. Oh, okay. Darn. Raji Rab is being admitted. Let me start my live stream as well. Okay, just a second. Raji, let me see. Are you unmuted? Where are you? Oh, there you are. Okay. Let me unmute you. You guys will have, or ask to unmute you. You guys will have about 15 minutes or so, and I hope that everybody here asks questions. I'll unmute you guys, or we could do hand raise, or we could see how that works. So go ahead, and either one of you can get started.
Raji, you there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Is Raji's video on? There
Yeah,
it is.
Raji.
Okay.
Hey, hi, Fiorella. Hi, Pastor.
Yeah.
How are you guys?
Good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, we're here with the Field of Burn Democratic Club. I want to thank Melissa for having us on, myself and Raji, particularly myself and Raji. You know, we were both there on Super Tuesday, March 3rd, election, primary election. Raji was there. I was there with the camera, videotaping everything beyond glass doors, beyond a glass wall. And I didn't know that me and Raji would be keeping in touch after that day, because there was a protest there after, for the long lines, the machines breaking. And then, I videotaped a USB and a network connection inside one of the computers, and I was sketchy about that. I didn't know what that was about. Now, Raji has been in a lawsuit. He's been in litigation since March. It's been almost 7 months now. And Raji, you can go ahead and take the rest of it.
Thank you so much for the opportunity, Melissa. I really appreciate it, and especially Convo Couch. You guys are so supportive of the truth in the matter. I don't know where we would be without you guys, because everything is a wall all over when you try to bring in truth. I don't know how an ordinary person could ever fight election contest, ever, especially after the primary. It doesn't look like there's a proper place, a proper opportunity, or any chance of somebody getting through. As you know, we were there election night, March 3rd. I saw what was going on. I asked these guys questions when they started scanning the ballots, and I was shocked to find out that they started scanning ballots 10 days before the election, which is against the law. So, and their ground was that we just do the scanning, and the ballots are not counted or not accessed. So I tried to protest it. I tried to talk to them, try to get some answers, no answers. I had to rush to the court. April 8th, I filed the election lawsuit. against these guys. And ever since then, all I'm up against is technicalities, delays, technicalities. The mere fact, which is so important, the word fraud, when that comes, even if someone makes an allegation of the word fraud in the elections, all heads should roll and see what the hell is going on. Why is this guy all the way here in the Sacramento courthouse asking about justice? So the ground that they had was the machines that are using are not able to access vote count. Well, through the discovery process, I was able to find out and get some technical document that belonged to the registrar and the manufacturers, and we got to know that these machines do access cast vote records. So what happens is there's these paper ballots that are put through the scanners, and the scanned images are instantly converted into cast vote records, instantly accessed by the VSAP machine, which
Right.
is in control.
Right. So when they said they scanned them 10 days ago, and they said that they scanned them in those machines, it turns out when Raji went into discovery through this lawsuit, that it turns out he got the operating manual, and it says that when you scan a ballot, when you run the ballot through, automatically you get it takes a ballot image, and then it reads the voter intent, and it creates a CRV, which is a cast vote, or CVR, which is cast vote record, and then it goes somewhere else into the servers, and then
No. Even before that, the moment it is turned into cast vote record, there is access right there. So I had asked the registrar office that, okay, if you are so clear on things, let's have an inspection done and let my experts have a look at it. They denied the inspection, and then I had to take the technical documents to the inspectors. These guys are programmers with over 20 years of experience. They are on nobody's side. They looked at the document. They gave a verified declaration which has been submitted to the court, and these experts are ready to talk to the judge. Now, what did they say? They said these scanned ballot images are converted into CVR, and they're instantly accessed by VSAP, which is in control of the registrar local. So the fact saying that these machines don't access is out the door. Look, the reason I'm here is to talk about fraud is in place, and November elections are in danger. The danger is real, the threat is real, and all those candidates out there expecting their hard work is going to come into play, I tell them to go out and see if these ballots are being scanned right now. Because as I see it, they will call it processing, and they'll start scanning it. There's no term scanning in the election code 15101B. So as you and I here are discussing this thing, I'm worried that the fraud is in place right now, because they started getting the vote by mail now, even more, because all the election largely is based on vote by mail. And vote by mail meaning that these guys are probably scanning them right now, and the moment you have access. So why do we have election contest laws? If everybody is to be trusted, if there is no foul play, why would they set up election contest laws in election courts?
Yeah.
They set them there because there are chances that whenever there is a possibility or you give access to vote count, there will be fraud. It has happened. The election in November are prone to fraud if the people don't get together on this. Johnny, Pastor, Fiorella,
can I say something, Raji?
Yeah.
Raji once said early counting is early fraud, ladies and gentlemen, and I think we have to really grasp that whole mentality. There's no reason to cast early unless you want to change the results of what's coming in. If you remember in 2016 what happened with Bernie Sanders, it was called early for Hillary Clinton, whatnot. That's why is when they start counting early, they can start, pushing the ballots to the back or just throwing them away, saying that they need further
provisional
ballots, stuff like that. But even the mail-ins, they can start pushing these towards the back and say, listen, these need further validation, whatnot. Early counting is early fraud. It's against the rules to count early. So if I know what districts I'm behind in, and if I'm the establishment, and I know that I want to make sure I get Richards through, I know where to cheat against Raji Rab. I know where to cheat against Angelica Duenas, and I can really tip an election that way. They did it to Bernie Sanders in 2016. They did it to Raji Rab in 2018, and they'll do it to some of our progressive candidates, even candidates that this club has endorsed that are out there to have a good shot. The fact that they're counting early and they're scanning early is very, very scary. And they're hiding behind the fact that they're only processing the ballots. They're not counting the ballots. But in actuality, they know where they need to cheat because they are also getting a count when they are processing these ballots. 1 million ballots, mail-in ballots, have already been processed through this one center and sent off to be counted. So we don't know what's what, and this is something very, very.
We went to a vote by mail processing center that's in Pomona, myself and Pasa, about 2 days ago, and they said 1 million ballots have already gone through. So,
yeah,
that's interesting. Raji, were you going to say something?
Yes. Look, what's going to become of us? The problem is, as a nation, we are being harmed, we are being destroyed. The demolition effect is already in place. If we don't have a free choice to make a decision to select our leaders, we are done because special interests are in play. The people that should be the fairly elected people have been thrown on the side. Malconduct and fraud is in play. And it's not that it is just an illusion. It's not that we are assuming things. I have evidence, scientific evidence provided to the court of law, and by people who will not put their credibility online, people who would not put verified statements in the court.
They're 20 years of experience, right?
The judge, they will never do it. And
do you want to answer questions as they come up, or would you like
please.
to hold them? Okay,
No
Melanie, you can go ahead and ask your question directly. I'm unmuting you, or trying to. And please, guys, try to keep them to questions rather than comments. But go ahead, Melanie.
Unmute. Yes. Hi, Raj. Okay, so what do you want us to do? Do you want us to go out there and force and protest and say, what are you doing?
Yes.
Or do you want us to write letters? Like, how can we get on this quick?
Right,
right now to get some press on it so there's some movement.
Thank you. Look, this is what we need to do. There is no noise. There is no voice. Everybody is so quiet. People think it is just another day. They put hours and days into selecting their measures. They do so much of research, but they are not looking at the fact that their voice is not being heard. All these choices that we are thinking of, it's going to go into the trash.
All right. Had to remove somebody. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Raji.
Okay, excuse me. What I was trying to say was that this is the pivotal moment. This is the time of our lives when people like us, if we don't go out and make a coalition of good cause, we need to have a force to come out and show. Letters won't do it. We need to come out physically, whether it's on social media, whether it as LARCC with social distancing, CDC guidelines. We have to show numbers. Unless we show numbers, it is being taken as a hoax. Now, I'm just shocked to the fact that having those declarations in place by scientific evidence and experts who have over 20 years of experience as programmers, and they're saying, hey, look here, this scanned ballot, or these scanned ballots were turned into cast vote records and accessed instantly. It's not that they were put on the site, they were accessed instantly, and after being accessed, they can be changed easily, and then they could be just held up election night and just push the button and the results are on. They're doing it now. But unless we, the people, or at least the candidates, all of us need to shake hands, go together, be present there and say, how can you do this? Show us why, under what law are you scanning ballots? And if you're scanning ballots, these machines are interfering with the election. These machines are compromising with integrity. These machines are opening doors for fraud. And it is not like some kind of a confused fraud. It's open, blatant fraud that has been proven by expert declaration. So the answer to the question is, Melanie, we need to get together. We need to put a force of people together. We the people have to come out and show. We have to come out in hundreds and thousands. We have to come out and show, raise our voices that, look, these decisions are being made by special interests in the election. These decisions are not being made by the ballot, because it's open. The secret is out. If we know that, yes, the ballots are being accessed before the election. There's no need to go even further. I believe that we have to go till we find out a simple way to check this. We have to go back to simple hand count, simple manual count, pay the people instead of paying hundreds of millions of dollars to contracts to these large companies in making software. We need to go just simple old way, get the people together, pay them handsomely, and make sure that these things are on camera in stadiums or wherever we can have. We need to have clarity. There is no clarity, and we cannot trust.
Do you have any final thoughts, or did you want to wrap up or have any more questions? Are there any, because you have about 4 more minutes total?
You talking to me or?
Yeah, both of you guys, if there's anything else, and we'll keep opening it up to questions though.
It's, so Raji, we were talking today about how you said you wanted the judge, with the judge. So let's talk a little bit on the judge and how she's being like very biased about in her responses right now, because it's really important.
The problem is that there's a matter of fraud involved. You know, there's an election contest. There's a guy come grief all the way to Sacramento courthouse screaming about fraud, malconduct. But what I've been facing up till now, Johnny, is technicalities. Nobody's looking at the fraud has happened. Nobody's looking at that. I've been screaming out and saying, look, November elections are in danger. Either give an inspection and let's find out the details of fraud, or give a recount. So we'll find out if the recount is different than there was tampering in the vote count. I haven't gotten any. All I'm facing until now is delay, and that's all there is. So it's very easy for any bad guy, any bad element, any bad actor to just delay the lawsuit against anyone to avoid justice in the matter. There is no justice.
Yeah, and I thought what was really important is that you know, the judge is like trying to paint you in her responses. If you read both Raji's applications that he sends, the words that he sends, and then you read what the judge sends, they're completely. She's like not focusing on. She's making assumptions of what Raji wants. She's what is it? She's not talking about the substance of the lawsuit. She's not talking about any of that. She's not. There's no substance. There's been no mention since his Second Amendment writ, because he's had multiple amended writs, right? Since the Second Amendment writ, they've made no mention of the evidence. She's made no mention of the evidence.
Exactly. First of all, there should have been no Second Amended writ, because when I had this face-to-face session with her and I explained to her everything about the election fraud, how it took place, why I'm here, and the declarations are already there by experts, I was asked to refile, amended writ, and that took a lot of time because I was, I filed it on the 21st. The hearing came on, there's no hearing actually. I asked for an expedited hearing for shortened time, and these guys jumped up and took a hearing in January, 3 months from now. So I filed, I don't want to say anything against the judge right now because the matter is in court, and I respect the judicial system, because if we don't have that, we have nothing. Okay. And I'm just hoping that the justices, the judge, our system should look into substance instead of technicalities, because otherwise, look what happened. I'm in court since April 8th, delay, demurrer hearing, and then I refile. And now when I file to shorten time, the judge is saying, well, there's no more time because we cannot reprint ballots.
The judge is worrying about the judge is worrying about reprinting ballots when she shouldn't. She should just only be worrying about justice. She literally responded, Raji just wants to get his name on the ballot for the November election, and it's going to cost a lot of money to reprint the ballots. That's like literally what it says in her statement.
She didn't say money. She said there's just no time to print ballots, and that's not the question here. How will we find out justice? I want to find out whether there was tampering or not. Just do the recount or the inspection. You didn't give me the inspection to give me the recount. I already have the inspection. The inspectors, the experts, verified under oath declaration, which have described exactly in detail, paragraph-wise, where the access came, how it was accessed, and how easy it was to access the ballots, and how easy there is access right now. So I asked judge, either give me inspection, recount. Give me one thing. She didn't give me any. So I filed my Second Amendment writ, and I asked her again in my request to shorten the date. I said, just decide the case. If you're not going to give me recount, decide the case so I can move on to the appeal section, go to Supreme Court, go to U.S. Supreme Court. I want to move forward. Of course, I've been harmed so much right now that I don't know how I'm going to recover.
So can I ask the question, since it doesn't seem that we have any more questions, this is kind of once going twice type of thing for our members. Is there a way that our members or the guests here or the public can get in touch with you and find out more and just kind of be part of the fight with you?
Thank you so much. Yes, this is the reason I am in and I'm participating in this session. I need help. I want people to get in touch with me. My website is there. Facebook is there. My email address is.
What are they? I can type them in the chat, or someone can, maybe I can find them online. But what is it? So I can put it in the chat.
So it's Raji Rab for Congress.com. The website, and then the Facebook has the same thing. Instagram, everything has my name on it, and everyone can reach out to me because I need to build a force to stop this malconduct and fraud in our elections. And I'm telling you, Melissa, November 3 elections, if you guys don't, stand up to it and we don't make a force, we don't go and show our faces, the numbers, they're going to keep doing it because they're not taking this thing seriously.
Raji, can people email you?
Yes, rajirab@gmail.com. That's the fastest one. Or rab@rabforcongress.com.
So Raji Rab, RAJIRAB@gmail.com. Hit
Yes,
Raji up
yes.
if you would like to
I need help. I will do the fight. I will walk the walk, with you guys. I'm in court and I'll fight all the way to the next election. I need support. I need you people to hold my hand and my voice all the way to the 22 election. We'll get it there if we don't get it here. But I'm in. I'm going to fight this court battle all the way.
Thank you so much. Thank you, both of you, for being here and for doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay right now. We're basically going to wrap up. We're going to hear if anybody has any stack or any reports, and then we'll call it a night. So,
hey, Melissa.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Unmute.
Hey, Melissa.
Go ahead.
I just want to say, Melissa, can you hear me? The way you got Alex Vilanueva here today, we need to do that with Dean Logan. He has a lot of questions to ask. He's the one who's behind this. Just the way, we have systemic issues with our law enforcement, a racial justice system that we have to fix. We have systemic issues with our elections across the board. Everything from the mail-ins, from the way they run these elections to have 5, 6, 7-hour lines, to the way they count in black box voting with proprietary software when we've been promised open source software. So I would appreciate if you can call Dean Logan here to this club so we can put him under the microphone the way we just did at Alex Vilanueva.
Great, and I look forward to when you're a member of the Field of Burn Dem Club as well.
I couldn't hear you there. You got cut off. You got cut off.
Great. I'm going to mute you now, but no, everybody can be unmuted. You're all able to unmute yourself. But this is a great segue. Thanks, Pasta. I put in the chat. If anybody wants to join Field of Burn Dem Club, I put a link. And we'll start up the next season starting in January, this next membership season.
Okay. So as you guys can see, wow, a lot of good things discussed. Fam.
Oh, we're on. Look out. Are we live?
Yes.
We're live. Oh my God.
So
Alex Vilanueva, an hour and a half sitting there facing the fire, huh?
I mean, okay, we'll give him props for going, but that was a bunch of bullshit, as my friends Glory and Tina like to say. It was, to me, he was completely obfuscating. Oh, and she want to be on?
I'm gonna answer this.
Okay. Hello.
Glory Jones, you're on the Convo Couch. Go ahead.
Okay.
Wait, put her on speaker. Hold on. Pasta's a boomer.
Bullshit.
Say it again.
That was a low. Okay, no. Actually, let me start over. Alex Vilanueva is the biggest piece of cunt, fuck, douche shit that may be one of the biggest ones I've ever met in my fucking life. He was so full of shit. I found myself literally screaming like at the camera despite being muted. I literally tried to be as civil as possible. It was hard, trust me. It was so fucking hard. Like, hearing him talk about Andy like that, hearing him talk about Andy who got his leg smashed in by a riot shield like that, talking about, oh, well, you don't know the full context of that video, to the woman who took the fucking video. That is a level of hubris that is just, like, reserved for the upper echelons of our establishment. Like, I didn't know whether I was watching Alex Vilanueva or Mike Pompeo, because that's what it sounded like. He is a massive piece of shit, and honestly, like, I wish I could have pushed back more, but obviously, like, it's not my thing, you know, it wasn't my event, so, like, there was only so much I could do, and honestly, that was like, so many lies in the span of however long that was. He did so much gaslighting, so much bullshit. He dodged nearly every question pretty much. He never answered the question as to why we're being detained. He never even addressed that because, oh wait, it's because the protest that I was detained at was never declared unlawful, and also it was while we were waiting to go home, so it wasn't even during the protest. He never even addressed that. He's a fucking bootlicking piece of shit. Fuck, can't do shit. And like,
Tell us how you really feel, Glory.
I just want to know, Glory, when he talked about the declaring an assembly unlawful, and I kind of questioned him on that, like, how long did it take for him and his people to declare an unlawful assembly at one of the times you guys were protesting? And this was during the day, correct?
Yeah, I think the shortest time it took us was actually at night. It was a Sunday night when we went there. We went there to protest the fact that they maced a 7-year-old the day before because they shot one of their little pepper bullets and the gas ended up getting into a 7-year-old's face. So we came back at night to protest that, and just, at the sheriff's, because that's where it happened. The 7-year-old was maced in front of the sheriff's. So we went there to protest at about, like, we must have started at around, like, we started gathering at around, 8:30, but we must have started at like 9. Literally the moment we started chanting at them, the moment we actually marched up to the sheriff's office, they declared it unlawful within about 2 minutes, and within about 5 minutes, they started shooting pepper bullets and, like, tear gas and whatever you name it. They tried kettling us. They literally chased us around the whole night in their little fucking cunt mobiles, trying to arrest us, and they were arresting unarmed people too. Like, anytime he brought up the football player shit, it was so annoying, because it's like, bro, do you realize I come to these things armed with nothing but my hair and a khaki? Like, and I wanted to say these things so bad. I was literally screaming it at the video too. I hope he could have at least seen my face, because I must have mouthed off like 10, like 12 fuck yous to him. It was, and oh my God, I'm at least glad I could tell him in the face to resign. But honestly, it's so bad, and like he wants to go on and on about, oh, transparency this, transparency that, we're so transparent, but like, here he is arguing with the person who has the footage of Andy getting his legs beaten. Like, and there's no transparency about any of it. How can you go on about how transparent you are and then dodge every other fucking question? It's ridiculous. And he's a piece of shit. And I'm like, man.
All right, Gloria.
I needed this to get the rant out.
Well, thank you for calling in.
We got you live. Thank you for calling in.
And Glory Jones has been attending these protests
yes.
every week.
Chat, I promise this normally doesn't happen. I just really needed to rant, and I damned fee ahead of time. I said, AOP, no chat. I'm calling Costa during your stream to rant once this meeting ends.
Well, thank you. We love you. We love your rants, and it was great hearing you on that thread tonight because there's a lot of answers he gave that were crocs of shit, especially when it came to the press, especially when it came to the protesters. So, I mean, he might have some answers for the good things he did kicking ICE out, but that doesn't excuse his behavior with the unlawfully detaining people. You have a right to be there. They know a lot of these YouTubers, and yet they still go and attack them, tell them to leave because they don't want to have any accountability. That guy who beat those guys, who beat Andy's legs down with a shield, should have been fired. And I'd have a lot more respect for Villanueva if he fired for that guy because that guy does not deserve to have his jobs. He can cause some serious long-time damage to that young child.
Well, next time it'll be a dead person, right?
Yeah.
Next time
is that what it have to get to?
Will die. So, yeah.
All right.
Thank you, Glory Jones. We appreciate it.
We love you, Glory. Go Jets. Goodbye. You see me slipping that Go Jets?
I said free Assange because Glory will go to these protests, and I've seen her, and she will talk, like, even if there are people from the other side, she will go talk to them and be hey, Biden's crap too. Let's talk about Julian Assange. And so she makes the connections between the police state here and the police state of this, the national federal security state level. And I wanted to point out what he said to us regarding the press because we have passes. We are technically credentialed press. However, he only mentioned the TV and radio, so mainstream media, media, in other words, right? But obviously, we have credentials. Josie had credentials. Now he's saying the credentials don't mean that you can stay there, and she should have been further away. Well, the mainstream media stays further away a lot of the times because they have a narrative to fulfill. We are trying to film hold the cops accountable. That's the whole point of journalism is to literally hold the state accountable. When you don't have press that holds the state accountable, it is a propaganda machine. And that's what the mainstream media has turned to. That Fox News guy, the one that we saw, Johnny, when we went to that protest that one time, he was behind with the police, working in tandem, pointing people out. I mean, sure, could we be those people? I don't think the police needs my protection at the moment. At the moment, I'm trying to figure out why so many people are being shot, why so many people and kids are getting beat up with shields, and then you're complaining about football gear and mocking it and saying, well, why are they showing up with football gear? Well, what the hell? I told Johnny I shouldn't have to show up as a journalist with a gas mask and all this crap. I shouldn't have to. I complained about that. I'm like, I shouldn't have to. But I've been seeing Tina, Josie, and all these journalists get literally shot, their property shot, but also themselves shot, their bruises. Do I want to end up like that? No. So what do? We get protected. That's why we wear that. They're wearing riot gear.
And not even like it's a very small minority who are wearing football gear, right? And he's saying that his sheriffs aren't wearing completely decked out riot gear and are holding riot gear guns and all that, while the protesters are holding umbrellas, cardboard boxes, wood shields, and what else? Gas masks.
And make no mistake of it, Johnny, when they beat up activist Andy and his legs like that, they wanted to sign the message, don't get out of here. We don't want you here. We remember what it was like in Portland, ladies and gentlemen. We're getting in there close. And don't get me wrong, a lot of times I was behind Johnny. Johnny got so close. I'm like, Johnny, I'm behind you 10 feet on the left. We get in there. When the regular media, traditional media that Villanueva talked about, they don't get anywhere close. They're like, let's get out of here. Let's get out of here now. They don't hold the police accountable. They stay far, far away, and they don't give you an up-close personal behavior of what the police department are doing, the interactions that the Convo Couch and these other kids will show you. I'm sorry for calling them kids. I shouldn't do that, but I mean,
people.
They're young citizen journalists that are going out there and they're putting their lives on the fucking line. When you see situations like that, what happened to activist Andy was a message, and he should have fired that guy right away. And even what's her name, Josie Wong, right? She had, she was identified as press. Why did you still arrest her? Once you knew she was pressed, you should have said, sorry, move to the side, and that's it.
And it's the way they arrest her, too.
They're so aggressive.
They're
so aggressive.
Because they don't want any accountability. So they get rid of us there. So therefore, they don't have to show anything.
And he didn't address the tweets, the multiple tweets, and I forgot to press him on this, the multiple tweets that his department put up of Josie Huang, saying that she approached them and she didn't follow directions, when you can see in her multiple videos she released the following day after she was released that she actually did everything she was supposed to do. In fact, I have been closer to the protesters. We have been closer to them, and like the way she was attacked, I mean, if this happens to everybody, if this happens to her, it's gonna happen to everybody, and that's kind of what happened. Now it's the same thing with Julian Assange. They go after him. Now look what's going on with our censorship. This is a fascist type of behavior, and we need to really speak out because this is all interconnected. If we don't hold these people accountable, they can go in there and pretend they're G.I. Joe. And he compared it to Vietnam. He was like, these journalists in Vietnam, they got killed. Sometimes
you gotta stay off to the side.
To me, that was very I was taken back by that. I was like, wait a minute. So are you declaring war on these people?
I know, right?
That's what it feels like.
You're comparing yourself to the Viet Cong shooting freaking people. Johnny, do you have the video of activist Andy getting his legs getting hit? Because I think we should show this again because this is really damaging. Right? There is no reason for this behavior whatsoever. This is fascist bullshit, and this guy should have been fired. And Villanueva loses a lot of credibility when he starts saying that, well, this and this and that and this and that. No, this guy should be fired. I don't give a shit what you saw. I know activist Andy. I've met him. He's a good person, and he's allowed to be there to cover these protests.
And not only that, they then attack the journalist for doing the video. So obviously, you don't want this to get out.
Yeah, because they're a fucking gang. All right, here it is.
What's he doing? Have you spoke to activist Andy since then? How's he walking? Right? They
no
should be
riot
fired
gear
and then
on
arrested.
him.
No riot gear. This is the bullshit right there.
And
how
look
are you
at how
gonna
the police
excuse
the sheriffs are dressed. I mean, they're dressed like they look like G.I. Joes. They look like they're going to war. That's the thing. I get the sentiment that the hostility is definitely not just a one-sided. These protesters are hostile because they're being attacked. So next protest that we go cover, Pasta, I shouldn't have to show up with a mask with anything, right? Like I generally don't even wear that stuff unless I feel like I have to or I'm in danger. But it's like, here's the thing. I don't want to get shot in the face and get my eye popped out because of the sheriff. Like, there's no guarantee they're not going to shoot me. What if I get caught in the crossfire? So like he didn't really answer that. I'm like, but they're wearing this because you shoot them. Then don't shoot them. Then they don't have to arm themselves.
He also kind of talks some malarkey when about one person throws something, and he wanted to say, well, these are frozen water bottles that come out like projectiles, but we only go after that one person. No, you don't. We've seen multiple times. One person throws something, your sheriff's department lights everybody up like a Christmas tree. You hear that? Did you hear that? Did you hear the sound of the last video? Those weren't firecrackers. Those were rubber bullets getting fired off. That's what that was. It wasn't firecrackers.
Pepper balls, maybe.
Pepper balls.
But those things are hard to breathe. You can't breathe.
No, those things are really
bad. They're awful. Like I told you guys, they came on us like when we were in the car.
Just in the air.
It was still like hard to breathe when we were in the car and it came up through the car. And another thing he was completely just avoidant about was the the ICE. Okay, so the ICE thing, like the whole thing was he removed ICE, but he also replaced it with a private company. So that's something that people also need to note. There are a lot of contractors that he still has. He denies it,
yeah.
but there are contractors that he still has that have a different name than the alleged. So it's not Blackwater, but it's just a different contractor name. These are things that, great. The establishment may not necessarily like him, but that is politics aside. This is just the sheriff's department. Like, we're talking about the sheriff's department and the community. And he's talking about the defunding the police situation, where that isn't like, he's painting it like, oh no, this is going to cut from all these wonderful programs and stuff. The police get so much money. The sheriff gets so much money. We have helicopters here every single day.
Yeah.
Every single day for no reason. They do not need to be arresting people, homeless people, for being homeless. They do not need to be arresting people for these protests like that. So anything that they decide is a reason for arrest, they can do that now. And if I can't film that because I'm getting shot at, then who's going to hold them accountable? This is not okay, and I think he needs to answer to it in a way where there's a reason the ACLU is asking him to resign.
And so possibly you were asking about activist Andy. I actually talked to him yesterday, so here's a little bit of that if you want to just...
Please.
Fuck KTLA for doxing protesters. They're not welcome at any Southern California.
He was in a wheelchair for about 3 weeks.
California protest, anything on site.
Activist Andy on Instagram, follow him. Always on the ground.
Always on the ground.
He actually got. How's your ankle, man?
My foot's better.
We talked about activist Andy. We showed the video on our show where you got hit by sheriffs with riot shield. You were just grabbing your phone from the ground. They started shooting in West Hollywood, and then they just started hitting you with a riot shield. And you were in a wheelchair for how long?
3 weeks.
3 weeks in a wheelchair?
A week on crutches.
Crutches. Now you can thankfully walk a little bit.
I can't march as much as I used to, but
you're moving better
that's
every
what they
time I
want.
see you,
That's
though.
what they want. They want you to stop marching.
Yeah.
They want to cut your ankles off.
That was insane, man. I still can't believe that.
I'm lucky they didn't cut him off, but I'll make sure they can't use shields on anybody else.
Yeah. No, yeah. He wants to change that they can't use riot shields, and he's got a lawsuit, I believe. But yeah, you heard him there.
Yeah.
So people need to go to jail for that one.
Yeah.
People need to go to jail for that. That officer should have been arrested. He should have been fired, arrested, and charged. That's it. Plain and simple. And Otis B put in a super chat contribution. Thank you very much. He said, welcome back, fam. And the second one is protesters have a constitutional right to protect themselves. Wearing defensive football gear does not compare to the weapons of war they have on them. And he's one. Otis, thank you so much. Otis, hit me up on our Convo Couch email, and I will send you a shirt for that comment alone. Amen, brother. You have every right to protect yourself. This is our First Amendment rights over here. You know what I'm saying? This is their freedom of speech right here. Sheriff Vilanueva should have reached out to these young journalists and made sure that they were provided with safety, gave them all the rules and the explanations. They have told some of these people, go home, what's his name, Vishal, right? They told him, go home, Vishal. It's like, you know who he is.
Yeah.
Oh, there's multiple videos of
You
them.
know who he is.
Hey, look, it's Vishal P. Singh.
Bottom line, Villanueva should have said, you know what? I take full responsibility for all the terrible things that have happened in my department. I will proactively work to make sure this doesn't happen again. I will sit down with the protesters and listen to their concerns. I understand where they're coming from. I understand this is a tense time. I will hold those officers accountable. We will do an investigation. I'm so very sorry for any damage I would have caused. Anything remotely like that would have been a much better response instead of, well, there's these two sides, and these protesters were wearing football gear, and these people, no, that's not on us, that's on them. There was a lot of obfuscating, and it was completely like it felt like there was zero accountability whatsoever.
That's the shitty part, and it's happening nationwide. There's no fucking accountability to any of these police officers, which is why you saw all those at Say Their Names LA. You saw these speeches. People are pissed. Families
and he's supposed to be a nice one. He's supposed to be the progressive sheriff.
Families
you guys
are being destroyed. 626 names there.
So, you know, I mean, he said McDonald would have never sat here and talked to you
and
guys.
that's a great possibility that would have happened.
It's
and I can't
true,
even
but
deny that. But this is what I'm saying, you guys. This isn't about politics. This is like about this systemic issue right now in the departments that I don't really think we can fix by simply, like it's going to take drastic measures to fix anything.
Glory Jones for sheriff 2022. Is that when they run again? Well, I'm hiring Glory Jones for sheriff.
Do you have to be a certain age to run?
I don't give a shit. Glory's ready. Glory's ready.
Way
She
more
would be the
education
sheriff.
than any of those sheriffs.
I mean, there's just so many things they can do to like, they could send somebody out there talking to press. They can, you know what I'm saying? They can take some friggin' accountability.
Yeah.
And he didn't take any accountability for what happened with the press. Even with Josie Wong, it was just a situation where it's like
mistakes were made on her part. I'm sorry, I did not see her make
mistakes on you. They're allowed to be there. And after you knew she was press, you let her go.
Yep.
You don't arrest her.
And
you're still saying and sending a message that we don't want you and your cameras here because we don't want to be held accountable. Yeah. We don't want our behavior to be shown.
And he said, do you expect me to treat the press that's properly credentialed with the independent press? Well, and he never answered that. Like, he never answered that because he got interrupted by somebody.
The traditional press.
Oh, my God, the stupid thing.
Yeah, so he actually never answered that. So there is a possibility that even if we are credentialed press, which we are, we can go in there and they're going to be like, no, you can't, blah, 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 because I'm not Fox, because I'm not, MSNBC. And whatever,
when you guys got arrested, you said, hey, listen, we have press passes here. Well,
and that
anybody
was the police,
can just get
but
those.
still.
Anybody, but it's the same behavior. Anybody can get those. It's like, no, you can go to the website. You can see we have people following. You have to get a press badge to the Democratic Convention, you need to apply for press credentials. I mean, you were press. You know what I'm saying? But they still go along with their bullshit. They still want to put the fear into young journalists and citizen journalists because they don't want to be accountable for their actions. The whole voting thing, the situation, I wish we had more time to talk about that because that situation is really bad.
It is really bad.
We have systemic issues across the board. We can't even finger. We have zero transparency. We have a 1% audit. It's
hard to get information from these election officials. It's like the hardest thing
ridiculous.
ever. Like, it's like, what the fuck?
It's so ridiculous.
I think you're going to have to join Field of Burn Democratic Club so we can bring in
if she gets Dean Logan, I will join the Field of Burn Democratic Club. That, and if she changes the name, you change the name of the club and gets Dean Logan in there, I will totally join it. I will moderate that. Feel the Toll Cell Club. Feel the tolls. Yeah. Well, who's been doing great work when it comes to ballot harvesting going on right now. It's just ridiculous, ladies and gentlemen, that we're still allowing this right now. The chain of custody is one of the most sacred things in our elections. The way ballots are transported need to be in the sight of all time. And even when we went to the facility over here in Pomona, we asked them, hey, so is there like a tracking device on these people and stuff like that? I think Budget Rider has tracking device. So when this rider leaves, and you just have a date, you don't have a time when they leave, you don't have anything when they get there, they can go just to Carl's Jr., they can go smoke a blunt. Whenever they show up there, oh yeah, but there's this piece of tape seal over here that says, they can change the whole box, have some more tape over there, and just do whatever they got to do. That system is not secure whatsoever. It has its own problems left and right, and we need to fix them. And every single part of our elections are messed up, from our mail-ins to the way they do the elections. I know that's what bothers fam the most. We all know that the elephant in the room is the proprietary software where we have a 1% audit, and we can't even look inside the machine, and we can't even compare all these ballots, 1%. And remember when we asked the guy, John, he goes, yeah, but that's so many hundreds of thousands of ballots because 1% of all our ballots is a lot.
1%'s fine.
It doesn't make, no, it's not fine. But the way we actually do our elections, the way it takes so long, 5, 6, 7 hours.
100% ballot count.
Yes, 100% ballot count. You know what I'm saying? Open source software, the whole 9 yards. I like Clinton Curtis's suggestion. Every time you have to, for every hour that you wait, longer than 1 hour. So if you have to wait 2 hours, the county has to pay you $100.
$1,000.
I'll take $100 because if they do that, they do that to a bunch of people. If you're waiting for 2 hours, they owe you $100.
Yep.
If you wait there for 3 hours, they owe you $200. That will straighten shit out. That will make sure that the process is quick and fast. You better believe it.
I know.
So we have to do stuff to fix our elections across the board.
People are cheering, oh, look at democracy at work when they're seeing long lines in New York. It's like, that's not democracy at work. That is a failed democracy, because you shouldn't have a long-ass line over there just to vote early. Like, to vote early, to even drop something off, to do whatever it is you have to do. You shouldn't have to wait in line for hours. That's not democracy. That is a failed state. It should be so simple and so easy for you, and then it should be completely specific, process, transparent. The
Yeah.
counting, the machine counts it, you
Yes.
count it. Paper trail, paper ballots. That is it. There is zero transparency in our elections, and the people aren't saying enough on it because they're like too busy praising Joe Biden and trying to say we need to get rid of Trump. They're not realizing it that the whole system is screwed the way we're in this situation right now because we don't have a fair election system. And a lot of these neo-progressives want to say, it's almost like you could vote fascism out. Look at Bolivia. Yeah, Bolivia has fair and free elections, motherfuckers. They don't have what we have. They have more democracy in Bolivia because they have people holding them accountable. They have committees of oversight there. They had the gray zone there. They had Code Pink there. They had all these people there monitoring elections. We can't even get in the room at the congressional race for Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Pasta and Johnny got kicked out. They couldn't even go in there. This is why you can't vote out fascism, you guys. For all of you that want to use that as an excuse, well, you can vote out fascism. No, you can't, because in this country, we don't have a fair election system.
Yeah, and when they start screaming, the polls, really, Joe Biden was polling at 8%. He got 25%. Explain that, plus 17 to the polls establishment.
And explain how everyone else got like so many less votes. It didn't make sense because they all dropped out like the day before, and if you're counting all the mail-in ballots, how does that even make sense? How did Joe get all those votes? All those votes have instantly switched over to Biden.
We got to subpoena the phone call of Barack Obama with Pete Buttigieg and Amy Klobuchar. I bet you'll be some interesting conversations on that. How did he convince them to drop out, and how did all those ballots come in for Joe Biden? Johnny knows, Fiorella knows, I know. We covered it here. Those people in line were not waiting in line to vote for Joe Biden. The people in line were not in line voting for Joe Biden. And this is something that Bolivia did too. They had fail safes. They made sure they monitored it themselves. Instead of all the Bernie people going around and ballot harvesting, grabbing ballots to hand in, what we should have had is somebody at every single fucking vote center doing exit polls. So now we have ammunition to go, hey, look what we got over here. This is not right. This is wrong right now. And therefore, you have another fail-safe, just like they did with the app in Iowa, just like they did in Nevada when you have eyes in the room and stuff like that. We weren't prepared for this. We need transparency across the boards. And let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Donald Trump can't steal this election when it was already stolen from Bernie Sanders. You got it? They stole it from Bernie Sanders. Just like they did in 2016. They stole it from Bernie Sanders. We had free and fair elections. And how do I know this? Because the Democrats admitted it in federal court that they have the right to cheat. Had we done what we needed to do, Bernie Sanders would have been the president in 2016, and we wouldn't be standing here today with playing Russian roulette with Joe Biden as our choice versus Donald Trump. End of story. We got to get this shit straight because the people they cheat most is the progressives. They don't want the progressives to take over. So all those progressives, like the Raji Rabs, like the Angelica Duenases, like Tim Canova, like Dr. Shiva, who's a Republican even still, the establishment will cheat them as well. You know what I'm saying? So they will cheat until we get this underhand. We need to call Dean Logan in. We need to get him replaced, and we need some damn transparency in our elections.
Bam.
Johnny?
Anything else on Raji's case where people can follow and help him out more?
All right, so just in voting in our elections in general, in LA, so me and Pasta a couple days ago went to this vote by mail processing center. We're going to post that video here soon. I'm going to work on it tonight and then try to get it out. And then I also have a video that I recorded with Raji where he kind of explains his case. And I'm going to release that as well. And we might play it on November 3rd as well. So Raji can't really speak on what the judge has been saying, but I mean, shit, like, let me just pull up something, like, really quick. Give me a second.
No, the judge has been obviously biased. That's the thing. These people are bought. These people are working in tandem. If you don't think they are, trust me, they are. Even when we went to the place to look at the provisional ballots, the minute we show up there with a group of 10 people, they were like, oh, okay. Not Logan, but what's his name came out?
Jeff Klein. Jeffrey
He came
Kleinberg.
out and escorted us, and we were in the room, and we were looking at these ballots, and we look at these provisional ballots, these placebo ballots, these pink slips that were either never counted, or if they were counted really late, and all of them were like, minorities and
Latino
all this
names.
stuff.
A lot of Latino names.
A lot of these people, of course, we know voted for Bernard Sanders. Now, obviously, Bernard Sanders still won, but that's beside the point. Bernard Sanders should have won by a larger margin than he won. Joe Biden, they did this in every other state, trust me. And it just becomes so much easier now with COVID to use these mail-in ballots as that.
Yeah. You know, they suppressed the Bernie Sanders votes too, but that's the whole thing about when it comes to a lot of these other ways, when it comes to mail-ins or it comes to flipping the votes via tabulation machines and stuff. It's stuffing the ballot box for their candidate of choice. Joe Biden needed to get above 15%, and that was the big thing. They said, what if Joe doesn't get above 15%? Because in California, if you don't reach viability, which is 15%, you're done. Bernie Sanders should have done what he did in Nevada and walked right out the door with this, and it was game over. But Alex Padilla, who also supported Biden this time, and he supported Hillary Clinton in 2016, made sure that this wasn't going to happen. And like I said, it seems like the wheels were in motion before it even happened. The way that Obama got the guy in second place and Pete Buttigieg to drop out and support the guy in fifth place and Joe Biden, if that doesn't stink to high heaven, guys, if that doesn't stink to high heaven, you want to hear phone calls? You want to hear the Ukrainian phone call? I want to hear that phone call. They fixed these elections, and if we had a real autopsy, if we had a real audit, a 1% audit, fam, what are you going to find with a 1% audit, ladies and gentlemen? Nothing.
All right, so, Gloria sent a super chat, so before I go into this, read that real quick.
Y'all help me keep me sane. And speaking of the Jets, reminds me of when Pasta was too scared to come to that Tulsi workout and use the Jets as his excuse.
He was sitting there eating a sandwich and watching football, while we were dying with these crazy Marines.
Because I had work.
Dying. Johnny was working.
Second job. Okay, so real quick.
She called me out for it. I gotta get called out for it again. I know, right?
That was hilarious.
Oh yeah, we got video of that.
Oh man, she called me out right in a meeting. Oh my god.
I would call you out too. I would call your ass out worse.
With the Jets were there. I mean, it was
Pasta. You would have died. We would have had to taken you to the hospital. That was really hard.
I'm ready. I'm ready to do push-ups with Tulsi. I'm ready to hit the beach. I'm a vegan now, fam. Okay, and I'm ready to go.
There it is. Go watch that if you haven't seen it. It's hilarious. I'm not gonna play it because then we'll get super copyright. But yeah, it's got the. Yeah,
that's the Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Yeah, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Okay, so here's so a little background on this. So Raji. All right, so a whole bunch of other legal stuff has happened. They've been trying to stop Raji on technicalities, and Raji sent his Second Amendment writ, which is basically his lawsuit, right? So it's his saying, what he's suing about and what evidence he has to support that suit. And then the opposition, which is, Dean Logan, Secretary of State, Board of Supervisors, they sent a demur. And then Raji sent an ex parte application for shortening time. An ex parte application meaning he's asking for a shortened time to hear the demur because they filed a demur to be heard in January of next year.
Right.
Which means that they're trying to
push this back.
To push this back again. Delay it. Now, so here's what the judge said. So she immediately ruled on Raji's thing, and she says the background to this case is described in more detail in several prior orders issued by the court. The court's not going to repeat it. For present purposes, it is sufficient to note that the petition involves a challenge to the primary election held on March 3rd, 2020. I just want you all to listen to the language that she uses. Petitioner was a Democratic candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, 30th Congressional District. Only the top two candidates will appear on the ballot for general election. Petitioner came in a distant fourth, and his name thus will not appear on the general election ballot. Petitioner wants to change that. He claims the primary election was permeated with malconduct and fraud, and he seeks a writ of mandate ordering a recount. He suggests a hearing on the merits by October 30th because the general election will be held on November 3rd, and any recount performed after then will be useless. He did not say any of that. He didn't say any recount performed after would be useless because he's still fighting it. It's for democracy.
Yeah.
It's
he's not under any idea that he's going to suddenly win.
No.
And anything like that.
No.
He never even said that.
He's just with the idea that these are fraudulent results.
Right.
Petitioner came in a distant fourth. What the fuck is that? She literally she said that in all of her orders.
It's the same thing that they did to Maria Estrada when they were like, yes, the cheating happened, or there was inaccuracies in the mathematics, but it wouldn't have made a difference anyway. That is the same argument these establishment shills use, the same exact thing.
Isn't that crazy though? So she's saying that because he came in a distant fourth, it's like, oh, Raji's only complaining, and
because he's a sore loser.
It's not like it'll change anything. It's not like the results are completely illegal and false and fraudulent. He came in a distant fourth.
That's irrelevant.
Yeah.
when I was in Orange County, when Bernie Sanders was like, first of all, I'd like to say that I am a big believer that all votes should count. I should have went, oh, shit. I'm sorry, Bernie. What were you saying? Because they're cheating you again, and you should protest this shit right here. You know what I'm saying? And that's the whole mentality they have. Fam talked about this the other day. It's they just frame you as a sore loser, and you're holding things up, so people get afraid to protest these elections because they're looked at as a sore loser, and they'll try to thrust it on you right away. Like, you're doing the thing wrong. You didn't do enough to win. Now you want to blame us? You don't want to blame. You want to blame the people? Like, no.
So again, this is what the judge is saying.
Terrible.
Even if petitioner were to prevail on his claim, it is now too late to make any changes to the ballot in time for the general election. Why is she focusing on that? As the court has noted in prior
Snake
rulings,
math.
the Secretary of State, who this lawsuit is filed against, also certified the official list of general election candidates to the counties for purposes of printing ballots.
Yeah.
Election officials began printing ballots shortly thereafter, and any delay in printing could interfere with the results of the election. What?
You already interfered with the results of the election.
If Raji's claim is right, then that interferes with the results of the election.
Exactly. It's so
gaslighting.
whack. This is what we're up against,
you.
ladies and gentlemen.
This is the judge.
This
and
is what we're up against.
I want you guys to know what the judge's name is. She is Lori M. Earl, and she's here. It's unbelievable that this is being said. It's unbelievable. Superior Court of California, County of Sacramento.
You know something, Johnny?
What's that?
When we were in the room with Maria Estrada, also Tina was in the room when it happened, and this is what David Atkins said. Unfortunately, there were some institutional players that really put their hand in here. There was major malfeasance. I am disgusted about what went on. However, with the math that went the way it is, it wouldn't have affected the results. So we're going to allow the cheating to go by. And Tina was like, oh, my God. And the lady was like, oh, be quiet. Sorry for talking so loud. But that's what happened, and that's what they do. They're like, okay, this is the cheating we know about. If there was this cheating right here, what about the cheating we don't know about?
Yeah.
It's not, and they do the same thing to Bernie, too, as well.
But don't worry. Don't worry, fam. Everything will be okay if Joe Biden is president.
Yeah.
In 2020.
Again, I want people to know that Raji has been in court for almost 7 months, and he's pro se. He's representing himself, and he's asking for help from lawyers and everything else. It's a lot of money.
It is.
It's a lot of money.
It's ridiculous.
Most people couldn't do it,
and it shouldn't be that way to look at our elections.
And the lawyers were like harassing him, saying that, since you didn't bring up any new evidence, you could be
held liable
to sanctions.
They could sanction him. They want to sanction him, put all the costs on Raji for
costs.
That's another scare tactic. Like they were beating up on activist Andy's legs. We don't want you here. That's another thing they do. We're going to sanction your ass so that nobody will go and try to test this ever again and try to take this to the courts. You just shut up and get back in line, plebs, and take what we give you, even if it's not fair results. And that's exactly what they're doing. Not to mention, Johnny, I don't know if Raji mentioned this, that in this particular situation, L.A. County, the Board of Soups, and all these people, and Dean Logan, they hired outside
litigation. I was about to say that.
Outside
they
attorney.
Hired a private
they hired
law firm.
greasy car salesman lawyers. They're going to use every trick in the book to delay. Never talk about the substance, just little tactics to try to throw monkey wrenches at you and let it go longer and longer and longer, so they just dismiss the case because they can't change anything. And that's what they are doing. They're using stall tactics to the brim.
It's like when you talk to the Time Warner guy, and they charged you for something they shouldn't have charged you, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on? And then they connect you to somebody else, and they put you on hold, and then they put you on hold to somebody else, and then you have to go over the same thing, and then the call drops, then you have to call again. It's literally that, but like at a bigger level. They completely delay everything, they avoid any accountability, and they push everything back, hoping and praying that you get tired, that you run out of money, that you finally give up, and that they don't have to deal with you again. It's the same shit.
They're using public money to hire this private law firm, Collins Murr Stewart LLP. I want y'all to know.
When they have their own lawyers under retainer.
I'm just putting it out there.
And that's what your money they're spending on that, right? They're going to pay ridiculous amounts of money for these lawyers with your tax dollar.
Private law firm, guys.
With your tax dollar.
A private law firm.
You're paying
what the
for it.
What?
You're paying for sleazy tactics to use against election integrity.
For someone who's representing himself. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Doesn't that say something? Doesn't that say like, oh, the Raji's got something there?
Yeah. They wouldn't spend that much money if
they're
thought
spending
it was...
like money.
Yeah, a lot of money. All right, guys, that's a 2 hour plus over here. We're at 168 minutes. That's almost 3 hours almost there. We're like 12 hours away and stuff like that. We got to go eat some dinner. Tomorrow we'll be back on.
Yeah. Well, we have so much to talk about.
What are we
I don't
gonna
know.
talk about tomorrow?
Fam, there is a war going on right now.
Where? Azerbaijan and Armenia?
No.
Where?
The neo-progressives and the progressives are at war right now.
war.
We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be
We're going to talk about the Giuliani stuff too as well.
Giuliani stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just you censorship, okay? Yeah. If you're going to be a journalist, you shouldn't be demanding censorship, especially if you're being censored as you speak, and we are seeing people left and right get censored, even people I don't love, like Jacobin. Like, I don't agree with all the things they say,
right.
But they're being censored right now. Anna Kasparian is being censored, and instead of really saying, hey, that's not okay, she's literally saying, well, Alex Jones shouldn't have had a platform, and Jimmy's like, wow, even when you're being censored, what's going on here? So we're going to talk about that in a couple other things tomorrow.
Even the Giuliani situation, because Matt Taibbi wrote about it. This was supposed to be about Hunter Biden's laptop and whatever the Giuliani situation, stuff like that, but it's become about censorship. The way let one side go and the other side they kind of censored back. Now, I don't know. I just want to say this, ladies and gentlemen. You're a little bit late to the party when it comes to going after Giuliani. The reason why I fell in love with Ron Paul is every single debate Ron Paul went after Giuliani. And I got so much shit from my family being an Italian guy hating Giuliani. I couldn't stand Giuliani. And I was going after him left and right now. But the whole thing about it is the censorship where they put forth his story and what's going on. We'll talk about it tomorrow. And the way they suppressed the Hunter Biden situation. The story itself now has become the censorship. And it's very, very scary. And that's something we have to address. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. We'll dive into it. There's a lot of things to talk about. It's going to be a crazy week. We got less than 2 weeks left for this election. And remember that we'll be covering the election all day, all night. And then the follow-up the next day. If we do have results, if we don't have results, we're bringing out all the bells and whistles for this one, ladies and gentlemen. So you don't have to watch the mainstream media. You just watch us. As you saw today, Johnny released 2 awesome videos of what's going on in the streets. We had Sheriff Vilanueva on. We had Raji Rab on. And this was an off day for the Convo Couch. So with all your help, we'll continue to go out there and get these stories, bring truth to light, and tell the stories that the mainstream media won't tell you. You don't have to watch them anymore. Anything else, guys?
No, that's it.
No.
So for Pasta Jardula,
Fiorella,
Johnny Sue that spun on those 1s and 2s.
Peace.
Convo out.
There's a peace.
Fuck censorship.
All right. Hey,